right, welcome everybody. Welcome back to 2026. All right, I'm going to call to order the regular Board of Trustees meeting for the Oak Park Public Library Board of Trustees. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
I am ready. Trustee Bird Martinez.
Here.
Trustee Buttman.
Here.
Trustee Fairfax.
Here.
Trustee Rogers.
Here.
Trustee Wilkinson.
Here.
Trustee Yamamoto, that is me, I'm here. And then President Bloom.
I am here. All right, we've got a slew of minutes here to approve. So I will start with the November 17th Advocacy Committee meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from that meeting.
Motion.
A second.
Motioned and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Fantastic. November 18th, that was our regular board meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes from that meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Wonderful. There was a special board meeting November 24th. I will open a motion to approve the minutes from that special meeting.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? And finally, December 1st, there was a governance committee meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from that meeting as well.
So moved. A second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Wonderful. Moving on to public comment. I did not see anybody on the board. I did not receive any emails. Ellsworth did not receive any emails either. So we will move past public comment to our presentations. So we have two presentations this evening. The first is going to be from Linda Schuler at Housing Forward. She's the CEO at Housing Forward, and we met with her, or ran into her rather, at the Homelessness Coalition breakfast before the holiday, Mika, Christina, and I, and after that asked if she could come and speak with us around some of the things that are happening in the community where we might lean in there as well. And then following that, our own Rob Simmons will talk a little bit about the social services and public safety. That's the group that dovetails and works most closely with Linda and her team. So Linda, if you and your team are ready.
Yeah, sure. Stand.
You can have a seat. Okay.
You're getting the after 5 ponytail up, so. Well, thanks so much for inviting us. We actually ran into each other at the legislative breakfast.
Oh, it's
a legislative breakfast sponsored by the Alliance Against Homelessness in Suburban Cook County. So I'm going to be sharing some of my time with Ramisha Tucker, who's our Director of Outreach, Diversion, and Prevention, and then John Harris, who is our facilitator of the Oak Park Homelessness Coalition, and we have separate sites for that. And recognizing that we have 20 minutes, so this is the order, and I'll.
You want to grab?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Just that. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna assume everybody here knows who Housing Forward is, the work that we do to address homelessness and those at risk of homelessness in the community. We've been in the community founded here in Oak Park, before Forest Park, about 34 years ago. You all probably know about our history of being a pad shelter as well. Okay. Okay. All right. So we have a brand new logo that we rolled out about 6 months ago to really reflect the framework of the work that we do. So, we changed our name from PADS to Housing Forward because of all the work that we were doing around housing, and it really wasn't showing in our name. And now we looked at it again because we also do prevention work, and that was also not kind of being highlighted. So we do really comprehensive work around, again, unsheltered homelessness, at risk of homelessness. We want to prevent homelessness whenever possible. Keeping people in their homes is the most humane way, most cost-efficient way, so people don't land in a state of homelessness. we respond to the crisis, and that's kind of how we're gonna focus our attention this evening. And then stabilizing people into housing. We're the largest provider of what we call permanent supportive housing in all of suburban Cook County. We have managed about 400 or so units of scattered site housing throughout our service area, which is this slide, maybe. There we go. Okay, so while we were founded in those 3 communities that I mentioned earlier, we actually have 26 communities within our service area. We're headquartered in Maywood and have been there since 2007. That's where our daytime support center is. But because we have such deep roots in Oak Park, and gosh, let's see if we can move this guy over here.
I know we've got IT on it.
Okay. We have a number of physical locations in Oak Park that are on the next couple of pages here. But so you can see the breadth of, our agency footprint and really the diversity of the footprint. So thank you so much. Okay. So as I had mentioned, really the framework of the work that we do is in that prevention of homelessness, which is also under Aramisha's purview, the response to homelessness and how we connect people who are in an unsheltered situation, connect them to our drop-in center, what we call our support center, which is in Maywood, and then some of the temporary housing that we offer, again, mostly in Oak Park. And then we're not going to focus really at all tonight on the stabilizing piece because that's a whole other presentation. All right, so street outreach is, we've been doing this work for, 14 years now. It's one of the main entry points in how people access those kind of temporary shelters that we offer. When we were operating the PADS shelter model, it was you show up at the PAD shelter door and you hope to get in that night. And now we have much more of an organized front door, and Ramisha can talk a little bit about that. But just so you can see that there are some distinctions here between our temporary shelter that we do offer. Most of this is COVID and after. Pre-COVID was really just the emergency shelter and the support center that we offered, okay? So, last year, on Halloween night, we opened the Anderson Emergency Shelter. So in January of 23, we had some temporary shelter over at the St. Catherine St. Lucie space at 38 North Austin. And for a number of reasons, we decided we weren't going to be able to stay there for accommodation reasons and what have you. The village came to us and said, hey, we've got a turnkey space. What community has a turnkey space for emergency shelter, right? And so, scratching my head, I'm like, okay, well, show me where the space is. This is the former Accolade space, which was a adult daycare program run by Catholic Charities. Mm-hmm. So it's on the back end of the Oak Park Residence Corporation building, and that parking lot is off the Oaks, which is a Oak Park Housing Authority building that has seniors and folks that have disabilities it's an apartment complex. And so this space had been vacant since COVID. And it's handicap accessible. It had showers. We ended up putting in laundry. We had to go through the zoning process, but in Q4 we opened up this new space, which will be fixed site, 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. so people can sleep in a little bit longer, 365. So no more rotating system of shelter. Where's the shelter tonight? Every single night, this is where we're gonna be. except for right now, because this space flooded about 2 weeks ago. In that torrential rain that we had that Thursday night. And so we had to actually vacate here and we had to go back to St. Catherine, St. Lucie, so we are there temporarily until we get through the claim process. But this is very exciting because first responders can now directly send people to the shelter. There's still a front door, and again, Alicia can talk about that. And then hopefully you are aware that a couple of years ago, we purchased the hotel formerly known as the Rite-In. This was during COVID as well. We received some funding from Cook County. And we are in the process of raising some funds to renovate this space. So what is interim housing? It's a 24/7 shelter. This is a closed site facility. You have to come through, you can come through street outreach, you can come through the emergency shelter, you can come through our medical respite program. You just can't show up at this location and expect to get a room. So there is clients have to be, eligible and determined need and what have you. But this has been operating for, 5 years now. Super proud of this. This was such a huge lift for our organization on so many different levels, but when we moved in, you can see clients' health improve. Their wellness is improving, they have privacy, they can shut the door, they can sleep in, they've got personal storage, all the accommodations. It's 90 square feet, of room space, but people can stay here 24/7. Okay, with the pathway to a permanent destination. Okay. This community is so lucky to have that level of temporary housing, right? In a suburban community like ours, to be able to have an emergency shelter as well as an interim housing program.
My turn. I am Romisha Tucker, Director of Prevention, Diversion, and Street Outreach. So I manage the street outreach staff in all of Housing Forward's 24 communities. So last year we served 431 people altogether, and of those 431 individuals, 119 came from Oak Park. So the street outreach workers, they literally go on the streets, like where clients are. So they identify clients through their own canvassing, but also community partners and community members will also reach out to them to kind of identify people that are not on their radar. Part of the reason why street outreach is so important because it is like the front door, an entry point, but a lot of times you will have individuals who they may not want to go into a shelter for various reasons. Usually it's due to some past trauma, but just because they have that trauma and they're not wanting to receive shelter services, it doesn't mean that they're not eligible to be housed and have other basic needs. So the outreach workers, they provide them case management, they gather the documents so that they can be identified for a housing opportunity, but they give them hygiene kits, they give them, like right now, cold weather, so cold weather supplies in the summertime. They give them the warm weather supplies as well. And then also all outreach workers are also trained to do diversion. And so they will have these conversations with clients. And when we talk about diversion, we talk about shelter diversion. So the clients are already on the street. So is there anything that can be done outside of shelter that can get a person to housing? So last year we had a client who was homeless in Scoville Park, and after some diversion conversations, it was identified that he had family in Mexico. And so we were able to contact his mom in Mexico, and then we're able to use diversion funds to get him to get him from an unhoused, because he went from street outreach, he went to shelter, and then from shelter, we were able to buy him the bus ticket so that he can go back to Mexico, because he was homeless here, but she had a home for him. He just needed a way to get there. And so outside of providing the basic needs, they also brainstorm to see if there's anything like that, again, that we can prevent a person from continuing to be diversion. So when we say diversion, that's what we're talking about, shelter diversion. Because also not only are people maybe resistant to going into shelter, but there are times where shelter is at capacity. And so then how can we quickly give some resolve to a person experiencing unhoused homelessness? Next. And so as you can see, of the 119 clients that we serve, this is the trajectory from last year. You'll see the dip in May on to December. That was, we did see a dip in outreach clients, but that was when we opened the Anderson shelter. And so we were able to move clients from unsheltered homelessness into a sheltered homeless situation. Next slide. And then this is just some outreach trends for the last 4 years. We serviced 368 individuals, and we do see a upward trend in servicing, and we do want that the trend to go down. But yeah. Next, I guess last one.
And this is just Oak Park.
Yes, this is not any of our the other 25 communities that we service. And so outreach staff, they canvas, and then they also here at the library, they have like office hours here at the library, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Our Freddie, he's here from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and then Maria Salinas was here the other 3 days of the week, and her hours fluctuated. So sometimes she was here from 10 o'clock till noon, and then except for Fridays, and then she would also canvas by later in the evening to see if there was anyone here needing services. So they do case management sessions here sometime in the private client meeting areas.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, John's next.
And I'm John Harris with the Oak Park Homelessness Coalition. Rob Simmons is a member of the core team of the coalition, along with Linda. Ramisha is in charge of, or we work closely in the street outreach team. So as the presentation is being pulled up, Housing Forward's vision is to end homelessness and working in 24 communities across the west suburbs of Chicago. We are the Oak Park Homelessness Coalition, and so we work in Oak Park, and that's the coalition's territory. And where Housing Forward is a direct service provider, we are an advocacy organization. So our work is to support and champion to the work of Housing Forward, the work of Beyond Hunger, the work at the library, the work at the village, and that's what we've been doing for the last several years. So if you just advance it, there's 50 organizations, we have 5 work groups, we have 1 plan, and we're led by a core team which meets monthly. Yeah, go ahead, sorry. So that's the 50, the 5, and the 1, and 1 plan. Recently, the village organized a task force, which was a cross-functional team in the community, and the village has identified a few areas in which to focus on in the coming year and years. Again, though, we are a coalition, so one of the reasons we're here with Linda and Ramisha and Housing Forward is because we want to support the library and want to make sure that where there are needs, the coalition and Housing Forward can support. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see just specifically who's on that core team, the 5 working groups, and then the quarterly coalition meetings. You might say, why are there only 3 when they're quarterly? Well, because we already had our first meeting of the year, so we have 3 remaining. And that, since street outreach is what Ramisha was talking about, every other Tuesday, we have a Zoom call at 11 a.m. for 45 minutes. And Aaron Alonso has been an active participant in that street outreach team. So that's where police, village, library, park district, businesses, Thrive, other service providers are all getting together and talking about at a high level. And then we have a by name list in the community where people have been identified and are the individuals and their situations are known to Housing Forward and are on that list. And those who have signed a confidentiality agreement, we adjourn the first half of the meeting, and those who have signed it remain, and we can talk about individual cases and situations every Tuesday. So if you go to the next slide, I think that might be the last, but you can see that, you know, there's all of these things that we're working toward, again, to support and champion the work of Housing Forward and the other members in the community that are working to end homelessness and also to prevent people from becoming homeless. So with that, there are resources. The street outreach card, the Anderson shelter has been discussed, and the emergency warming center has been discussed as well. But these are things, as Linda said, that have really come about over the last several years through the leadership of Housing Forward, and again, the support of and advocacy from the members of the coalition. So I'll come a long way and more to do, and one of the reasons we wanted to get with you today, and thank you for inviting us, is to inform but also engage with the library.
What questions do you have of the work that we do, the coalition, how we might be able to work better together? I think we already have a super strong relationship with Rob and his team. So anything on your mind?
I had a question around a definition. I think I've seen a couple of times, like functional zero, like.
Yeah.
Can you define, because zero is not an option, so functional zero, could you define for us what that would look like?
Yeah, so that means you can get somebody quickly rehoused within 30 days.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean people are lingering and waiting for resources to happen. And we are some way away from getting to functional zero.
What's the latest number?
So at interim housing, it's probably 200 nights until that resource becomes available. The other thing here is all of the components have to work together, right? You see this upward trend of unsheltered homelessness. 28% of those that we serve in the street outreach program are coming here from a park. We have increased our shelter capacity from the 20 beds we had at St. Catherine, St. Lucie to now 40 beds. We have roughly 65 beds over at interim housing between the interim side, and then we also have our medical respite program over there. So we're talking about 105 beds, double what we used to have under the pad shelter model, and yet our unsheltered numbers continue to go up, right? So we keep putting resources into the response because in weather like this, you need to get people off the streets. They will die. Or they will end up at our medical respite program with frozen toes. We need more affordable housing, and I know again, that's a whole other conversation that has been had, and that's one of the work groups that we do have within the coalition. It's just housing takes so much longer to get people housed, right? When you were talking about the production of housing, we have been working on a partnership with Interfaith Housing Development Corporation, which is a nonprofit developer whose CEO happens to live here in the village. They did the Grove Apartments where Sugar Beet is. We are partnering with them to develop Keystone Apartments, which is right now this is Oak Park Homelessness Coalition was instrumental in making this connection as well with the Fellowship Christian Church. And I'm blanking on the address, but it's right across.
Al's Grill.
That's what I was gonna say, that's my point of reference.
Yeah. Al's
It's
Grill.
next to Al's Grill
Across from
across
Rush.
the street from Rush.
Yeah.
So we've been working with Interfaith has been working with the village, and, the church. So we have, that site secured for affordable housing, it's getting the financing in place. So you gotta apply for these grants through the state and through HUD and what have you. So, we actually had a call with Perry Bietti, the CEO, today on the progress of that. That application is going into, IDA, the Illinois Housing Development Authority, in February. It's gonna be a tax credit deal. But we went through 2 rounds with IDA through their permanent supportive housing round, was not funded because the competition is so high for these funds, right? So now we're talking about 2028. It just takes so long. Yeah, so it's 36 units of permanent supportive housing, which we will be the on-site service provider. But until then, right, you know, how much more do you continue to put into the response side when we really need to get people housed? So,
Wow.
right, and when the shelter is full and interim housing full, you see more people at Scoville Park, you see more people here at the library.
I saw that the families with minors number is going back up, and I know before when I did work with PADS, that was a huge problem as we saw a rise in families with minors showing up to the emergency housing
Yeah.
facilities. So how is that changing what you're doing or what resources you're looking for or how you're pivoting things to accommodate families with minors, but also trying to keep them in the school district, trying to keep them
Yeah.
engaged?
Good
How
question.
is-
So 40% of those in street outreach are connected, it's a family with a minor children. 40%. So we do have limited capacity both at Anderson and interim housing for small families. What we did under COVID is we have, we created 2 programs. One in partnership with Sarah Zinn. So we are the housing partner with them on a HUD-funded program called Safe Bridge. So that's a domestic violence transitional housing program that we launched with them. And then independent of that, we launched what we call Families in Transition, which is also transitional housing for families that are not fleeing domestic violence. So we place families into master leased apartment units that we rent. So not having them in an emergency shelter situation, but it's having sufficient, units for that and the funding associated with that. So we did have a 3-year grant from the Village of Oak Park through the Village's Affordable Housing Fund that just expired in December. And that Affordable Housing Fund, the money generated from that comes from the inclusionary housing ordinance, which the Oak Park Homelessness Coalition was instrumental in getting. But the funding in the money in that fund is shrinking now that we don't have the large developments that, in lieu of creating affordable housing within the Albion and all these other, the 1,200 units created in downtown Oak Park, a lot of that money has now been spent. I mean, there was, upwards of $5 million and it's now shrunk to probably $1 million or less. So that's where additional resources could be had, but there's such competition as well for units because of market conditions. But that's how we're trying to divert families from being in those temporary into putting them into apartment-based.
How does Oak Park compare to other kind of similar suburbs, just with units and actual space for folks to, how many beds and all that, how do we compare? I guess with the need versus
Yeah. So in terms of unsheltered homelessness, Maywood, Oak Park, Berwyn, and Cicero are considered the hotspot areas or the communities where we have the most street outreach. Oak Park is the only community that has emergency shelter in within all of our service area.
Do you guys have a rental assistance program, or who do you refer to?
That's homeless prevention. So homeless prevention, we can do first month's rent, secure deposit, move-in fees. A lot of the times we call it homeless prevention, but we also interchange and call it eviction prevention because we do a lot with arrears. So it's rental arrears and also utility arrears. And then we have one funding source from the state IDHS funds where we can do mortgage arrears. We can do like first down payment, but we can do the arrears with that program. So that would be calling the 1877 number, the call center number. That's one entry point. And then also we do intake and triage at our Maywood location for people needing those assistance. And then also again, sometimes there may be a street outreach client who they don't need as much assistance, or shelter client. They just need that little bit, and we are able to do first month's fire security for them as well.
And in Oak Park, there are currently 2 buckets and there's work being done maybe in the next couple of weeks to combine those. So the village has had a flexible rental assistance program and the FRAP, and so Housing Forward has administered that. And the township has emergency assistance also. And so FRAP is going to move over so that emergency assistance will be coordinated under the township to make it one point of entry. Technically, it might be a few, but within the township at least. So there'll be one entity leading that in the village. But it will be the township. We actually had that slide in, we pulled it because it's like weeks from, and I know this is a public meeting, but it's probably a few weeks away from being completed, and then it will need to be announced, et cetera. So sometime late first quarter, second quarter, hopefully that emergency assistance in Oak Park will be consolidated under the township.
Will they still get funding through the village or?
Yes. I think it's just the administration.
It's going over to the township.
Yeah, because what Ramisha and others have had to do is, you know, there's one set of criteria and one bucket of funds over at Village Hall and then over at the township, and it's confusing. So from a coalition perspective, a Housing Forward perspective, I think also Village and Township will be able to say, emergency assistance, Township, here's your point of contact, the email, the phone number, the location, and then the township can determine whether an individual, again, working with Housing Forward and other folks to determine what bucket of funds this goes down.
I want to follow up on Virginia's question about the families. We also have, do you want to talk about D97 and what we do?
So we have our family support specialist, Evelyn Martin. She works very closely with District 97 to identify families that are currently homeless or also in a doubled up situation. And so they meet once a month, yeah. And they go over just kind of like how John described. And we do like the case management session at the Oak Park Homeless Coalition meeting. They have those case management sessions for those identified families as well. And outside of that meeting, we also have like social workers who will reach out to say, you know, we have this family and they have that situation, they're unstably housed. And ECHO that Street Outreach works very closely with as well, they now have that if the landlord is filing for eviction for a family, then they have to let ECHO know that this family is at risk of homelessness. And so then that will go through also the village for FRAP and emergency assistance, but then also they will be able to connect with us for outreach and or shelter or potentially funds outside of village, like the Oak Park funds, because they might qualify for the state funds that we also distribute or county funds that we also distribute.
My last question for you is, especially for those of you who are doing direct service and working with clients, what they say they most use and or appreciate of the library. What are you hearing?
that the library is welcoming. You don't get that everywhere. You do have like some public spaces where they make the unhoused population uncomfortable and they're not as welcome. And so the staff here, they're very good at connecting a client or unhoused individual with services, but you know, it's always a warm place when it's cold outside. It's always a cool place when it's hot outside, and we don't see that in all the communities.
How do you see like the library, like how, you had said like, how can we deepen that relationship, like how can we help more, and like what do you envision?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's two things. There is the, education of, community members about the work that Housing Forward does. I know that, was it last year, or the year before, the village had a series of events in the Veterans Room around homelessness prevention and what is affordable housing. And I think a continuation of that, I think there's always opportunity to use the space that you have here to host an author who's written about homelessness or housing, doing those educational events.
Address events here also.
What's that?
We did the Say Yes to the Address events.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes. I said it like y'all knew that one. So,
We'll wait, it's okay.
So, the Say Yes to the Address was born from, we, part Housing for, in the Alliance and Homelessness, had participated in the 100-day challenge. So we had tasked ourselves, each agency across the continuum had tasked themselves to addressing like a certain population of individuals. And the goal, not that, they don't work to house individuals speedy, any other day, but to get as many housed within like 100-day time frame. And one of the things that has been brought up across the board is lack of landlords that are willing to rent to
Yes.
our population of clients. And so a lot of times that is the only thing that is preventing a person from being housed. Like they may have the rapid rehousing, the permanent supportive housing subsidy, or they may even have a voucher. But if they can't get a landlord that will rent to them, then that person will continue to stay homeless. So after we did the Say Yes, after we did the 100-day challenge, Vanessa Thaney, she participated in it, and we just carried it on. And so we wanted a catchy name, so it's Say Yes to the Address. And so we have these landlord events in different, so West Suburban Cook County, South Suburban Cook County, North Suburban Cook County, and we hosted it the last 2 years that we had it at the Oak Park Library in the Veterans Room. And so we would invite landlords, not just Oak Park landlords, but landlords in, again, the communities that we service. We did want to specifically pinpoint Oak Park libraries, but the Oak Park landlords. So it was landlords that had vacancies. They would come, and then it was clients that, again, the only thing preventing them was the meeting of the landlord. And so it's also kind of like a career fair, but it's like a housing fair. And so we have hosted that here, and I think they're working on another event for 2026. But that's really nice to be able to have those events and things like that here at the library.
So it's called an accelerated move event, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. We've also hosted the Career Pathways,
Yes.
It's twice a year that we're doing that, or?
Yeah, essentially a career fair that the library has hosted here. Members, new moms and members, the African American Christian Foundation, Homelessness Coalition, Housing Forward, all getting together and helping people get ready for jobs and for careers. So the library has hosted it in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think to put a fine point on what we're all talking about here, and your question is, the library has done a lot, and Rob has done a lot, and Aaron has been an active participant in street outreach. We would probably have been more opportunistic and could be more strategic about the relationship and the connection with the library, thinking ahead to what are your goals in 2026 and beyond, and what are the goals of Housing Forward, the coalition, other taxing bodies. So how do we attach at the top and then make sure that the things that we're doing maybe more organically, renting space, coming together, bringing people together here, you guys as a community hub, that we're just thinking more strategically again about how we can support you and the work that you do here every day, and then how the library can support the work that we're doing in the broader community.
Yeah, and let's get specific about support. So, John does not work for free. The Oak Park Homelessness Coalition has a very small budget, but we have to fundraise every year for that budget. We get a grant from the Village of Oak Park of about $40,000. We do have a commitment from the Community Mental Health Board of $10,000 that has been supporting this work since our founding. And then the township also gives $10,000.
And the Community Foundation and then Oak Park Apartments as well. So that's essentially the funding. There's private donations as well.
Yeah. So if there was a consideration for, a grant of some sort, and, we would make a commitment to coming every year, to, highlighting the work that we've done over the year, that would be, we certainly would love that. Because we're 11 years into this, and every year we have to fundraise. So the support of the library as part of the commitment from the other government entities would be wonderful. Joseph.
Anyone else have questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having us.
We forgot to bring street outreach cards, but
You can come back, you know where we live.
Thanks so much for inviting us here and to tell you about the work that we're doing.
Our pleasure.
Very great.
Thank you to all of you, and thank you to Rob and Aaron for the participation.
Aaron, for those who don't know, he's our manager of public safety.
Right.
So Rob's gonna step in now. This is Rob Simmons. Everybody knows Rob. Rob has been here almost 10 years.
10 years in March.
Yeah, we're coming up on 10 years. And Rob has a really great ability to both see the acute need, but also sort of the strategic arc of what's coming next, and has built a phenomenal team, and has a really impressive sort of iterative system of building a program that works. So when Virginia invited Linda to present, I thought this was a great opportunity for Rob to sort of amplify what we're doing in the same sphere. So thank you for being here, Rob.
Awesome. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about our strategic partnerships. So at the end of the presentation, I'm going to be very efficient because I know there's a long agenda. So I will try to do that. I've been in Monrovia in 2016. It was my first year starting here. At that time, there were 4 full-time library social workers, Oak Park Public Library, myself, Denver Public Library, San Francisco Public Library, and Washington, D.C. So each of those models look a little different than what we built here. I am the only, actually right now, Salt Lake City just hired their Director of Safety and Public Social Services. So she'll be here in April, spend 2 days with me. It's been very great for me from I would say, a community of practice within the past 8 years, because I worked with probably 7 Chicagoland libraries to help them build social services or create strategic partnerships. But additionally, across the nation, we've been able to I've been able to learn and then also implement some things that people are doing that have some of the same needs that we do. So that's been wonderful. We've also been able to strategically integrate social services, public health support, and innovate public safety into a very innovative public safety model that I'm going to talk about into our library system. So very, very proud of that. It has been hard work though. I've got some gray hairs and some stress, but also we've had a lot of wins along the way. We've been able to change the environment. Ellsworth, what I know about you, you were here in 2016 and you were here now. So he's been able to see the total evolution of a lot of work that we've been able to do. So I'm looking forward to working with you particularly to be able to build upon, what we've been able to build here. We've also been able to do two things, which is very important: connect patrons to resources in a more expedited manner. There are a lot of socially isolated folks here. When I first started, particularly on the third floor, 30, 40 at a time. The national average is 1 in 5 people have mental health issues. At times, it's 1 in 3 here. That's not a volume, but we've been able to do a good job to be able to manage that. And we're going to continue to do a good job to implement some strategies to make sure we can help folks in an expedited manner, and also connecting to some best practice evidence-based resources, which is important. We've also been able to mitigate social isolation, which I mentioned, and then also introduce strategies to decrease opioid use and overdose among patrons. I think this is one of the most stressful parts of my job, and also safety, public safety, particularly when you have to intervene, administer Narcan. There's a lot of exposure to other things when you do that, but our public safety team is phenomenal. Our staff overall is phenomenal. Aaron, he's been here for 9 years. Once he started, my life became much easier. He's open to different ideas around public safety. He's a former law enforcement officer that believed in community engagement, community policing. So for us, he's been a huge resource, and I love Aaron. He's awesome. I'll get into the presentation here. Here's some highlights over the past couple of years. I've presented at a lot of library associations. I think one of the most helpful things for me for creating, I think, for myself and learning and being able to implement things is about 2019, 2018. I reviewed a lot of proposals and RFPs for the IMLS. There were a lot around social, I would say social impact work. That was huge because I got to get a snapshot of everything happening really across North America and Canada. So I was able to look at a lot of communities, particularly that have the same challenges that we do, and ask what worked, what didn't work, and was able to really implement a lot of social impact work, which is very helpful, particularly in my first 2 or 3 years. Again, because there were not a lot of libraries doing the work. We were able to, in 23, with our partnership with Rush, Chicago Rush, provide 300 free clinical hours to patrons. So we basically, started in 2019 with this and opened up a free mental health clinic, the only one in a public library setting. This year, I'm looking at working with the university to be able to continue some of that work, but also use this site as a learning site for PhD students. There's a shortage of clinicians, so I think that having this as a learning site, that's a way that we can get very talented clinicians here. They can learn, but also provide some direct services for our patrons, which I'm very excited about that. In 2023, we received a really prestigious award from Feinberg School, Northwestern, which is a medical school. We really provided and looked at providing digital mental health resources and access for teens, particularly BIPOC teens and marginalized teens. For 2 or 3 years, I co-facilitated teen services. So that's why we were able to have that opportunity here in our library system. I'm very happy about that. So this is the continuum of care that we surround our vulnerable patrons with. We've really totally re-envisioned and moved away from safety and security model to a comprehensive public safety team model, and I'll talk about that shortly. Our training, we really emphasize everyone on our public safety team and staff too. We offer this to staff, but mental health first aid, trauma-informed care. I consider us a trauma-informed care organization, and then also harm reduction and opioid training. We've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years now. This year is the first year that Illinois has mandated that libraries have Narcan on site. So we've been doing that work for 5 years. We have the Narcan distribution box in the vestibule, and we also provide that training as well to staff as well. So it's not just our public safety staff, but that staff as well. Live for Nolly has been very supportive in providing training for free for us, also providing Narcan, and we work with the Village of Oak Park for with additional naloxone box and Narcan that we need. I think really a huge and crucial thing for our organization is that I've been able to have us at tables, coalition, working with the village and other key stakeholders. We're now at tables where any conversations about improving social services, improving public health strategy, we're at that table. We were not there in 2016. We were isolated ourselves as a library, and that was an issue. That was causing issues too, as far as being able to get folks regular outreach, being able to have housing for here 5 days a week. That's huge. That wasn't happening. So being able to have small wins like that, where we really do have a robust outreach situation. That's why there aren't as many people socially isolated at the library now, and we're really proud about that work. In 2016, as I mentioned, well, I didn't mention it was 2016. I think the understanding was for me to be able to take over, and we used to outsource our security, public safety. That was not working for us. I paid a lot of attention to the engagement and academic engagement, the re-traumatization, the monitoring and removing situation they were doing. That was unacceptable. So I found out about 90 days into my role, we're going to go ahead and hire our own staff and do that. So we did it. It took us about 2 years to hire the right folks. Aaron was a part-time hire about a year. 2017, once he came, we were able to really start hiring the right folks and being able to do some innovative things when it comes to engagement, training around trauma-informed care, mental health first aid, to be able to have our public safety team, them having the tools to really engage with vulnerable folks. I did about a 2-year audit on incident reports. Most of those incident reports were, it was from 2016 to 2017. Most of those incident reports were filled out by our staff. Some were occasionally filled out by our public safety team, but the ones that were filled out by our public safety team, I know that there were just so many opportunities for a better, softer engagement. To really not just kick someone out because they were having distress, not breaking rules or law, right? That's different. And our public safety team is very efficient in making sure we address those issues as well. But someone that has maybe even a developmental disability or just really stressed and exhibiting some behaviors that are disruptive, they don't deserve to be kicked out. That's unacceptable. So we don't do that anymore, and we will not do that. And we really look at our public safety team as an extension of our outreach support and services. So we've come a long way, and I'm happy to say that that's our philosophy now, and will continue to be. The 4 highlighted social services, I would say areas in red are 5. Those are the predominant areas where we spend our time with providing support, service plans, and then also outreach support with referrals. Again, I think that the hardest, the most difficult engagement, and numbers increase, I would say, this is a community issue, not a library issue, when it comes to the mental health issues in the community, but also the substance use disorder issues, particularly the opioids. That is something that is a challenge for us. It is one of our biggest challenges, because if we don't have the resources, which we're gaining more resources, but also have the strategies to engage, to make sure that we are talking to folks, patrons, particularly who are using, who are overdosing, on our premises particularly. You know, we don't want anyone to die of overdose again. So that's something that every day, for our public safety staff and myself or whatever, we're making sure that we use strategies and other things of engagement to make sure that we're connecting with folks, checking the front, cleaning up needles, things of that nature, working closely with our facility staff, checking bathrooms, making sure that our plumbing is working. That was a big issue when I first started. The toilets were overflowing, things of that nature, because people were throwing needles and things in there. So we're really on top of those type of things in our environment to make sure that we are at least trying to mitigate drug use and overdoses as well. This is the referral form that we use. I'm conversational in Spanish. I can get by, I do get by. We have three staff members on public safety team that are bilingual in Spanish. So there are other resources that I can lean on and go to when it comes to, you know, we really don't, honestly, we don't have a barrier communicating with the folks who only speak Spanish. I think most of the folks, even filling out this referral form, they'll fill it out in all Spanish and they'll talk to us in English. So it's really been not an issue as far as a language barrier for us, but we do have those resources just in case people needed translation, things of that nature. Franco, and I was mentioning at the beginning, we hired him in 2014. Franco Rodriguez, he is our supervisor of public safety and outreach. So he works closely with me. All of our public safety staff, though, are trained and are aware of how to make sure or make soft referrals. Aaron, as you mentioned, they mentioned Aaron 4 or 5 times. He participates on the coalition outreach calls. That really gives us an opportunity to be in not a reactive situation, but also a proactive. It gives us information about what's going on in the community, what's going on with certain individuals that are here every day, what some of their struggles are, what some of their needs are. And if our public safety team has to engage them ourselves, we kind of have a little information about probably about 75% of folks, particularly who are experiencing chronic homelessness. We have a little information on it. I think the ones that we don't are more transient, but most of the time we have a little information. We have, you know, to be able to engage and be productive in making sure that we're encouraging some of the resources that they may be resistant to, or able to like introduce them to some new resources. And that's served us very well. It's definitely kept our environment safer. People feel welcome, as Linda said, but also people give us a heads up sometimes when it comes to opioid use or overdoses. They're like, hey, this is kind of what's going on in the community. There's more cut with certain things that are causing people to overdose. Also, like, be careful because like such and such may be using and things of that nature. So it just gives us an opportunity to have more surveillance on certain folks who are struggling. I mentioned that we are a trauma-informed organization. So what that means is that our organization realizes through training of trauma-informed care that the widespread impact of trauma and understands potential paths to recovery. Instead of also, what is huge is our staff in public safety, we stray away from what's wrong with you. Something's going on with someone versus please tell me what happened or what's going on. Much different approach. It de-escalates right away, and we tend to get a lot more information from folks or whatever. And it first and foremost, de-escalate the situation, which is huge. What's wrong with you was happening a lot when I first started here. So again, we don't do that anymore. That's unacceptable. Recognizing signs and symptoms of trauma in clients, families, staff, and others involved in the system. Responds by integrating knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures, and practices. I would say that a good example of that is going to Fine Free. I talked to David a lot about that, and it's like, hey, have you kind of considered that, like, you all look into the numbers of who that's impacting, that burden that it falls on, and it really is falling on folks who, are having financial difficulty. And the last thing you want to do is re-traumatize someone who needs resources here because they owe $20 or $30 or whatever the case may be. So that's one of the reasons that influences the decision at that time to look at 5 free. But, you know, took us about a year or so to change that policy, and we did it. Moving with even another example, a library for everyone. We had, when I first started here, a list of do's and don'ts for our behavior list. Who was taking the burden was teens of color, particularly, and then people experiencing chronic homelessness, and you know, having developmental or mental health issues. Again, you know, so those are just 2 policies that were changed. And as you see, the language is much better. It's more of agreement. It's softer, with a library for everyone. And I love it. Here are some points with the mental health first aid training, and it gives just our staff an action plan. You know, to make sure folks are get the resources they need that are having mental health challenges at that time of engagement. These are the strategic partnerships. It's just a short list of partnerships. If you'll notice, so you know, Housing Forward talked about their relationship with us with the outreach, the Homelessness Coalition. New Moms, I work very closely with Gail. Gail and I did co-chair the Jobs Readiness group on the coalition as core members. We did that for about 6 or 7 years. I had to tap out, so there's another co-chair, but we did. So we did a lot, and they're still doing a lot in our veterans room when it comes to jobs, support and things for the community members, and that's been going very well. Our local government work, so a lot of what happens at the unhoused task force or the village manager's alternative call response model. The core outreach community team was born out of that group. So what happens is a lot of the task force, particularly when I work with the village, we talk a lot about building programming, but also how policies may impact the community. So encampment ordinances, which we don't have, that wasn't talked about or discussed as far as creating one, but maybe what ordinances look like when it comes to certain challenges with homelessness in the community, or even you know, some other I would say a lot comes up even with affordable housing through the coalition and also through the unhoused task force as well, as far as housing, what some ordinances or what a program may look like. So it has been tremendously helpful for me to be at those tables because we can tell our stories about how that directly impacts folks at the ground level, residents. We're very, I'm a voice for a lot of people who can't speak and really speak up in those environments. So I'm happy to do that, and I'm very committed to doing that. Measurement and evaluation. You know, every month you see the report is structured through engagement, learning, stewardship, equity, and anti-racism. There's reporting within those domains. So that's one thing we do as well. Quantitative data, there's many ways that I look at our, number one, I track what I would say is really the most prevalent need by looking at our referral format I showed. So I look at those on a monthly basis. That helps me track what the biggest need is at that time. So that's how I came up with those 5 areas or whatever where we find ourselves advocating the most in. Those 5 areas have pretty been consistent since 2016. So the qualitative the qualitative piece is the program logic model. We've been a program logic model organization for about 7 years now with Mallory. She introduced our whole organization with that. I've been using that since 2016 when I started. That keeps me honest. So in looking at strategic partnerships, I look at you know, what changes in status or condition can that organization articulate to us. So Housing Forward, they definitely can change the housing condition of people. That's very important. They're good at articulating it. It's evidence-based. What changes in behavior or actions is expected from the program? Rush Medical Center. I look at that a lot. Can they articulate that? If I'm referring someone for behavioral resources, things of that nature, is the organization successful in answering that question? What changes in knowledge, skills, and or attitudes is expected from the program? Thinking about partnering, having training here for staff and also training for even some of the folks that we refer for certain types of training. That's important. Can that be answered? It keeps us honest. It keeps me honest. I get asked to do a lot of different stuff that not necessarily has anything to do with social work, honestly, but having a measurement and evaluation tools to keep us not addressing symptoms of issues, but addressing conditions and things that move people in the needle on for stability for folks. That's the main goal of what we're trying to do. Questions?
One, when you talked about the 5 areas that came up from the measurement, and I noticed that immigration was not on there.
Yes.
Has that changed in the last couple of years?
Not really. There's been a small uptick, but I think that, and what I'm hearing in talking to folks who are targets of the immigration issue is that libraries are big. There's a lot of people there. You know, there's a lot of different ways that really faith-based is safer for folks. That's what they've said. So a lot of faith-based. Now, even I was interested to see, even with the legal clinic that we gave, and we're going to have some more, by the way, who would show up. Folks with immigration issues, things of that nature. There are a lot of caregivers here that I know, that I've spoken to, but they rather go with the family that they're working for. So it's more confidential, it's safer, this is public. So a lot of people aren't trying to really go to a big public place to receive those services. And schools are, from what I'm hearing from school social workers and other folks that are at schools, they're experiencing kind of that same narrative. Email me, I'll meet with you individually, face to face. If you have questions about anything, I feel like I really have a good pulse with what's going on locally and also regionally with folks who are experiencing barriers to service, but also what's happening really when it comes to service providers. So I don't mind sitting down for coffee, I don't mind a phone call or whatever, just please reach out to me. I appreciate everyone's support here, and I'm excited about, you know, what's in the future horizon for us.
Not a question, but I just wanted to make a comment. Extraordinarily proud of how many other libraries and professionals are coming to you to see how this work works and works correctly. It's something that I know I get to brag about out in the community, the work that you're doing. And I just hope that you get to hear and see how proud this community is of what you're providing. This is something that a lot of people point out. You know, if you go to other libraries in the area, there is law enforcement, there is security there, and that's a very different feeling from what we have here, and that was very, very deliberate. The welcoming that you make sure happens in the cocoon of still acknowledging the safety concerns that other patrons may have. People see it and they acknowledge it. It's helped people to open their eyes to understanding the unhoused, understanding folks that come here and making them more empathetic because they see, if my library can be this empathetic, what am I missing? What should I learn? So I just wanted to say that we're incredibly proud of the work that you've done, the national attention that you get, the fact that people are flying here to shadow you and look at what you're doing, and I hope you hear and see how incredibly proud the community is of you.
Thank you so much.
Just echo that a little bit, just as a patron, you know, from the beginning, just like walking in and seeing like how everyone is really like allowed to be here. I felt safe, like I felt more comfortable. And so it's not just the patrons that you're servicing directly, like all patrons are benefiting. And it is really really wonderful, so I really appreciate it.
I also really appreciate the attention to kind of language and how you approach things, like even just when you said, I saw the slide, mental health first aid training. It's like, yes, thank you for calling, like, it is health, like, people tend to not think of mental health as a health issue, so calling it first aid training, I think, just all of that, I think it does, it makes a huge difference for the community, it makes me proud to serve on the board, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I try to make it fast.
We're here all night anyway, don't worry about it. It's a double meeting since we didn't meet in December,
Well worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's
Thanks, Rob.
very,
Thank
very,
you.
very good presentation, thank you.
All right, trustee comments and calendars. Trustees, do we have any comments? I will say, I know I sent everybody sort of a get your brain working in 2026, things that were in process. If there's any detail that you want me to add to that for sort of a February pre-cap before we come in for the February meeting, please let me know. So that way we can maybe coordinate some things and feel like we're on board, especially now that we have so many committees moving and we've got folks sitting in, other organizations. Just being able to synthesize something really quickly. If there's something you'd like to share with the group so that we're not having an LMA issue, please feel free to email it to me and then I can put it into that recap. Calendar, February 2nd, 5 p.m., we're gonna have the governance committee meeting. February 9th, that is going to be our special library board meeting that will be around the ED evaluation. Finance committee will meet on February 17th. Our regular board meeting will be on the 24th, and then there will be the governance committee strategic planning session on the 26th. Any questions there?
When, did we decide when we're moving to Wednesdays?
That starts in March.
That's like,
Yeah, and I'll look in the calendar.
Okay.
For,
Like March 25th.
yeah.
and when do we plan to put something out to the public to let them know about the change to Wednesdays?
Do we need to do something proactive, or is it just, it'll go out with when the agenda gets posted?
I would think at least the month before or something, just saying, hey, the next month is starting next month, it'll be on Wednesdays instead, just.
Is that something we can just add to the
Because it's already in the calendar.
board
The
page?
dates will be in the calendar, I mean,
We could add something potentially to the board page. Do you have something particular that? Okay.
Just wanted to have it on the radar to call that out to the community.
I could talk to Alex about it too.
Yeah.
Sort of related to that, but as a little bit of an aside, I have received some thank yous from people on other governing bodies for us moving to Wednesday. They feel like folks will be able to feel more engaged. Do we have visitors? That people will be able to feel more engaged, and that it's setting sort of a good precedent for us to try to spread out so that the people who are really trying to be involved feel like they don't have to pick and choose where to be involved. So collective thank you to all of you from the folks who've spoken to me.
Special thanks to Christina for
Yeah.
I got this something else, you guys. All right.
Executive Director's Report.
So this month, I'm not doing a traditional director's report. I instead put my 6-month executive director's report. For anybody doing HR math in their head, I have actually been here closer to 8 months, but because we didn't meet in December, this was the most practical place to put this. I'm happy to answer questions. I feel like I put a lot of content in that report. But just as additional context so that everybody is on the same page, I thought, just for the sake of transparency, to do a relatively robust work report about sort of what has been happening, what I've gleaned from that, and what I hope to do next. This is not a self-evaluation, but I do see it as a complement to the evaluation that we'll do next month. It gives a lot of context and kind of gets folks up to speed on what has been happening. So I wanted to share this publicly, which is unusual, just to sort of respond to the call for overall transparency, and speak to the board and the public and the staff, in terms of, again, what have I learned and how, and what will I do with that information. But happy to answer questions.
I really appreciate that you spoke this, it was great.
I see a lot of overlap from some of the strategic session conversations that we had. So it's nice to know that, because your perspective is from the strategic session, but also from being in the building every day, that the things that were called out there or pinpointed there really are carrying. You're seeing that those guesses or those assumptions really are reflecting. So like the strengths that we all called out, the areas of opportunity that we called out, you're not seeing that as being in conflict with what you're seeing day to day. So that was comforting.
And I did share this document with staff sort of first. So that went out in our internal communications on Friday before the board packet went out, which I just wanted to make sure that staff had an opportunity to take a look, and my hope is that they see themselves reflected in this as well.
Did you get any responses?
It sounds like responses have been positive so far. I haven't heard directly from anyone yet, but it sounds like the directors and managers who have had staff comment have felt good about it.
This is a really helpful tool going into the next month's meeting. I am, you can table me to later in the agenda if I'm jumping the gun here, but why are we doing the review in like 9 to 10 months instead of after 12 months?
That's a really good question.
I think it was just the timing of when we sort of came up with the tool and the availability of the board and.
Yeah, I think it's more about moving forward consistency with, at the beginning of the year, January, we present a framework, February, we do the evaluation. So when Ellsworth came in is less of a factor.
As timing during the year.
Yeah, but 6 months is long enough that we felt like.
So we're going to 6 month and 8 month review.
But then it'll be another 12 months.
Yeah.
Right, so.
And I think we kind of wanted it within the year, we wanted to make sure we checked in.
Yeah.
Internally, we
Thank
do
you.
quarterly. So every one of the direct reports in the library does evaluation conversations 4 times a year.
Wow.
Is that a conversation or is that just paperwork?
So we use a tool through our general HR software where everybody writes a self-evaluation and then the supervisor or manager writes an evaluation. Those are not revealed to each other until they're both in. And then that's followed with a conversation. So we have both the documented piece, which lives on in that tool, and then the conversation piece.
So both of those things 4 times a year.
Yes. And that's every.
Really two main questions. What am I doing well and how can I improve? It's not a long drawn out form. It's meant to be short and simple.
I've seen it in Bethel actually.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
to see
Not
if there's alignment
the
or
library.
misalignment. And if you're aligned, it's really easy to continue to see kind of this conversation.
Yeah.
If there's misalignments, then you have a little bigger conversation. We discover that quarterly rather than, or track it quarterly rather than maybe
supervisor, like every staff.
Yeah, every staff.
is supported, yeah.
Any other questions? This is great.
I just have one question, actually. Can you remind me what are circles?
So circles are often used as a restorative justice tool. It's like a facilitated conversation where there's usually pretty scripted community agreements. So you come into it with everybody on the same page, with the same goal, and then it's designed to sort of be a safe space to authentically speak to the issue at hand. So I would say most often they are used in sort of a restorative justice environment.
So in reference to here that this used to be a practice at the library that stopped, that you're looking to re-engage or re-initiate?
Yes, so usually circles, and here circles were done with quite a bit of intentional training before they're done. So the library had a number of cohorts of staff that went through training, and then there was some practice around it, and then it stopped. And there are some staff who are interested in kind of revisiting. I would say there's also some shared trauma around circles and other things that happened in the organization's past. So I'm really leaning into sort of staff experience and opinion and thought in what are the benefits of bringing this practice back, what is the potential harm, and how can we do this in a way that works for everyone. So we've had 2 conversations so far with staff who were trained as circle keepers in the past to learn, and I think that the conversational part of this will continue for a while before we take action if we establish another cohort or take on additional training. Again, just to make sure that we are being appropriately sensitive to everyone's experience.
Thank you for that thoughtful answer. And you say 2 conversations have been held so far. Do you mean conversations about restoring the practice, or do you mean like circle conversations that you sort of like piloted?
That's a great question. Conversations about past practice with circles.
Yeah.
And I thought about having those held as circles, and just knowing the complexity, decided we're not going to jump into it that way. We've talked about a few different paths forward, including things like, what if we tried learning circles, which are often a little bit less vulnerable, and kind of stretch the muscles that way. But we're still really in the sort of sandbox phase of what's it going to look like. And these conversations have been with the people who are trained as circle keepers or people who have significant experience in circle work outside the organization. So we haven't yet opened that to the full staff, but I believe at some point we will.
Final question. Is the intention, the idea that these would include or could include external community members, or that it would be focused exclusively internally, or is it an open question?
I would say it's an open question right now. I think we will learn a lot more as we sort of continue the dialogue and dig into what needs to happen to kind of close the last chapter around circles and think about how we want to implement them again if we do.
Right.
There's an oval right now.
No shortcuts.
There was also a period where board members were going to be brought in on circles 2 at a time. And then that didn't end up ever happening, but it would be nice if that kind of leads that direction, that we can also kind of experience it and and when you're talking about the difference between like learning circles, there's like, what's your distinction in learning circles? Is that being like a lighter lift?
it seems like I've been to conferences and things where circles are used around, you know, a topic, or there's just that approach to kind of, is that what you're talking about? Or-
Yeah, I would say in my experience with learning circles, they're more about sort of, we have a thing, so we have an outside piece of work that we're gonna talk about, and while part of that might be sharing personal story with it, it doesn't have to be, so it could be more about something that is outside all of us, and less of an experience, but that doesn't mean that they're not meaningful or require vulnerability and trust and those things, but I think it would be it might feel different to re-engage through something like that than to jump into a more traditional restorative justice kind of circle. I'm not an expert in learning circles, so that's my sort of off the cuff thought about it. But like I said, we're really kind of putting all the ideas out, and the group will continue to kind of mold what does that look like, and then the next step will be, what do the resources look like that we need to do this work? So if we want to create a cohort, what does that training look like? Are we ready to do that this year? Will it be next year? Like how do the pieces come together? So Suzanne, you said that there was an idea of bringing trustees in, but that didn't
So
materialize?
it was actually, like, Virginia and I were gonna be the first two to come into that, and then,
It was a little organic, because I had signed up for the one before that even, and then I got a new job so I couldn't do it. But like, they just allowed, it wasn't,
before you were here.
okay, well, I guess what I remember is you guys were gonna do one, and I think I was signed up for like the August, and then I got a new job so I couldn't. But it wasn't, from what I remember, it wasn't organized, it was just that we were welcome to attend. But I wouldn't want staff to feel weird about that either, so I think that's the other side of that.
Right, so, well, yeah, whichever, but it, my recollection is it was going to happen, and then the facilitator was sick.
That also happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot.
And then,
There were a lot of reschedule.
they kind of juggling, things changed a lot. So, but I know that we were looking forward to kind of being able to experience what was happening with that, and find ways that we could support that work here.
That's good to hear.
Now you have a note on here for you scheduling regular work time at Maze and Dole, which is like for the board to also coordinate with you for us to have our board meetings, perhaps on the day that you do your work there, to allow folks that would go to one of those branches to come in and speak to you, but then also be able to come and do live public comment with the board as well.
Good idea.
Any other comments on the executive director's report? All right, we will move on to strategic priorities, and we have 2 months worth here. 2 months of absolutely fantastic things that happened. I love the Friendsgiving photos.
Yeah, they're great.
That made me very, very happy, especially having it geared towards our middle and high school age kids.
Over 100.
Yeah,
We've been doing this for a number of years.
it's, I feel like it's one of those holidays that, like, that's the age group that kind of gets left behind in
Yes.
participating in Thanksgiving, so it's nice that, you know, we're making a space for them to celebrate with their chosen family, and sort of trying to at least teach them that chosen family is an option, through allowing them to celebrate Friendsgiving here, so.
Winterfest was also called out, another middle high school services program that is also sort of about that social fellowship. And this is such a dense 2-month report that it was, I mean, I always say this, but it was hard to pull things out. I do feel like mentioning the coverage of the departmental retreats, that's something that takes a lot of intention for managers and supervisors to put together, but we're seeing really positive feedback from the units that make time for that. Rob Simmons contributed to a Chicago Tribune article about Narcan distribution, sort of the models that are used, community partnerships, which we're always proud to see. The EMPS survey results were 52 this time, which is up from 47 in June, from 17 last December. So that's like a 35-point spread between a year ago and now. I think it's really important to be realistic about EMPS. This is a moment in time. It's a brief survey tool, but I do think that it's reassuring to see sort of stability and a little bit of upward motion in that number. And this was given at a complex time. Like there was some budget conversation happening. There were inputs that I was curious to see how they would impact the number, and I think it feels really good to see that stability, that optimism, and I'm pleased with that. We also had a good response rate, which is also important. I think we are asking staff to tell us what they're thinking, and that can be a hard ask. So I appreciate it. We talked about the cultural humility and anti-racism training with Dr. Jarrell Hazell from the Berkeley Center for Cultural Humility. This was a really great experience. I really liked working with Dr. Hazell. And staff feedback was overwhelmingly positive, both just in terms of re-engaging with this work, but also about the presenter of the topic and the content. So that was a positive. Berkeley Center for Cultural Humility had presence in Chicago already, and it sounds like that's going to grow. So this is a great relationship to keep building. And also the Kwanzaa celebration, which has been going on for a number of years. Over 200 people came, just really positive event for all ages. But those are just the things that I felt like, let's mention out loud. This is a really great representation of the work of staff.
I wanted to call out sort of two things here. First, the strides that the makerspace is making. This was one of the first things that was mentioned when I joined the board, was sort of wouldn't it be cool if? And to be able to not only see it come to fruition, but now see the work that it's doing in the community, the education it's doing, what it's providing, and just like seeing that there's the one-on-one training, hearing, people talk about, I'll just go to the library. Like, that is really incredibly encouraging, and just very selfishly getting to see from when it was just sort of talked about as a maybe thing that we could possibly do, to now seeing it actually in action is phenomenal. It's just really inspiring to see what we can do with a dedicated, creative staff and team here for our community. So very, very proud of that. And then I wanted to ask Billy some questions around our health insurance premiums. Looks like we did some creative juggling to keep those premiums at a reasonable
Yeah, if
level.
6% is reasonable, yeah. But we did some work. I don't know how much you want to know. Should I just sit at the table, or should I?
Yes, please, just to talk a little bit. I know, and you mentioned this before the meeting, I know we talked about this during the budget, but that was sort of in the context of the budget. I just wanted to talk about what were the choices that we made, or what had to happen to keep us at 6%? Because I know we went to a legislative lunch earlier this year, talking to other libraries. They're talking 25, 30, 40% increases. So I know six isn't comfortable, but by comparison.
We knew early on that we were potentially facing high renewal increase. In the Chicagoland market, yeah, 20% was normal this time around, from 2025 to 2026. Already in 2026 to 2027, we're hearing from our cooperative that we're looking around 20% as well. And so we're gonna have to make additional changes. But back to what we were able to do this year. So 9% was the number, 9% was the increase in our PPO plan. Most of our full-time staff are enrolled in our PPO plan. When I start thinking about plan design changes, I've been in HR over 20 years, and plan design changes are the things that can scare the crap out of staff. They worry me, and I take these very seriously. So, Ellsworth and I, like, pretty much from when Ellsworth started, we started having these conversations. We knew that this was coming. So we looked at all of our options. We have a great cooperative that we belong to, the IPPC, the Illinois Personnel Benefit Cooperative. Government agencies around Illinois band together to push back against large insurance companies. So they gave us many options to look at. And the one that seemed most reasonable to us was our PPO plan, Blue Cross Blue Shield, converting it to what Blue Cross Blue Shield calls a Blue Choice Options Plan, a BCO plan. How much information do you want to know about the difference in the plan design? Because
what does it change that our people can access?
so we went from a two-tier model where you have in-network coverage and out-of-network coverage to a three-tier model where you have in-network coverage, out-of-network coverage, and there's also a third BCO, a Blue Choice Options level. When we were looking at these plans, what we wanted to do is, like, if staff didn't change their doctors at all, we wanted them to have a similar plan to what they had in 2025. And we were able to do that with the in-network coverage. But in the BCO option, that third tier that was added of coverage, that actually reduced the deductible, reduced the out-of-pocket maximum, that 92% of our staff, their doctors were in that network already. So this was an exciting development. Like, wait, the doctor I see today in 2020 or in 2025, if I go see the same doctor in 2026, I'll have less out-of-pocket costs. Like, you can't be serious. Like, how does this happen? Like, but that's the reason why we're bringing it down from a 9% increase down to a 6% increase. Was kind of just this model shift. If we wanted to see like reduce that 9% down to a 0% increase, we could have done it. But that would have been on the backs of our employees. Yeah. It would have been, raising deductibles, raising out-of-pocket maximums, and it was clear in my first conversations with Ellsworth that wasn't even an option. Like, it was not really an option I was considering, but like it was reassuring to know that Ellsworth was making a stronger stance against that. So, and again, even though I viewed it as a positive change, I sold it to Ellsworth as a positive change, I now have the responsibility of making sure that staff understand what this change is. So we held informational sessions, and even before I had those informational sessions, I tested that message with select staff members to make sure they understood it. And out of the end of it, they appreciated, they knew more about insurance coverage, and they understood it better, and they got the point that, like, it's likely that their out-of-pocket costs for deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums will decrease, and they won't even have to change doctors in 2026.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah.
If we went into those conversations, I mean, I was reluctant to change plans at all. The last time I worked here, we made a significant insurance change from one provider to another, and that experience was negative overall.
Yeah, I still hear about that change, and I wasn't even here.
Well, it was from who to who, I'm just curious.
It was from Blue Cross to United Healthcare.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. I've
And
been through one of those transitions. It's hard.
and I think it's so important to be sensitive to this. So Billy had to do more granular explaining to me than maybe in some environments, because I was really skeptical of could this really work the way that it's being described. But we I think we both feel confident that this was the right balance of reducing cost for the organization a little bit, but maintaining the kind of coverage that we want.
Couple questions, if I may. So, whatever's going on.
I know the microphone's better here, so.
Okay. So who is the provider now?
Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah.
It's still Blue Cross Blue Shield, we just switched from it's still a PPO plan, but they're not calling it the Blue Cross Blue Shield
Yeah,
PPO plan.
it's like a
It's a
3-tier.
BCO plan,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a maneuver that we won't have available to us next year to
Okay,
do with this,
but
right?
now that we've made this change, we have more levers to pull within those tiers. And so, already thinking about what we need to do. Because really, I know the IPBC, they're gonna do everything they can to get that 20% initial renewal down to a more reasonable number. But reasonable right now might be between 10 to 15%. So what do we need to do, to put it into perspective, a 10% increase on a $1.2 million line is what? $120,000? $120,000. A 3% property tax increase, that's nearly half of your 3% property tax increase.
Yeah.
And you haven't even factored in wages for wage increases for staff yet. So it's gonna be some interesting conversations in the next few months, but I know we're gonna do what we can to do what's right by staff, but also keeping an eye on our budget priorities as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm curious about what are we going, I'm sorry, cultural humility training?
Mhm.
Yeah, the cultural humility, why is it so hard for me to say? Yeah, the cultural humility training, I'm just curious, it sounds like there's over 100 staff members that participated, so was it like an 80% participation rate? Was it?
Oh, I remember calculating it, and I think it was over 80%.
Sorry, what's
The percentage of staff who
What was the number?
participated is
130 staff.
106 who left out of 130.
yeah, you're roughly, 78, 79%, close to 80.
It's so great to hear that there was really positive feedback and that was well received. I'm curious, is there anything that staff, in terms of feedback, that they gave that they would have liked to have seen done differently or in addition next time, or were there any constructive feedback that came out of that?
There was a lot of constructive feedback. Like I said before, overwhelmingly positive, and lots of trends that jumped out right away. In terms of, I'd say one of the most frequent comments was, we want to go deeper. Like, we want more, and we want. Dr. Azell covered a lot in the training, and then at the end of it, did a really explicit sort of like, okay, so what's the practical application? So we've talked about this, we've talked about some theory, we've talked about some intersectionality. What can you do as library workers? And there was a lot of positive feedback about that, like we really like that part of it. So to me, those two pieces together, that we want to go deeper and we want to keep the practical aspect, that sort of opens a pathway for what kind of curriculum can be built. We are also having a keynote speaker at Staff In-Service Day, which is Friday. That's also talking, what is the working title of that? Do you remember?
From survival to solidarity.
So, talking about moral injury and intersection with sort of anti-racism work and other pieces. So we're excited to also gather feedback from this part. But I also think in the feedback from staff, there was sort of an element of relief in terms of like, yes, like we format so many things around the anti-racism work that we do. This feels like an important component to be, continuing work on shared definitions and how do we have these conversations with each other and with the public and those pieces. So, but then within individual responses, there was a lot of really powerful content. Staff took the evaluation, they took it really seriously, and I was really pleased with the sort of thoughtful and pretty deep responses people gave about their experience. And we talked a lot about the best way to deliver this training. We had thought about closed for a day, should it be a 2 hour, 4 hour, 6 hour, 8 hour, like what are all of the different pieces? And we ended up offering 2 sessions over 2 days. So staff only needed to come to one, with the hope that that would sort of maximize the number of staff who could come and not overburden from the beginning. So an 8 hour training sounds really great when you're planning it, and then by hour 6, it's sort of like, when is the next break? Even if it's great content. So that felt like a good, we also had not yet worked with this presenter or this organization, so we thought let's try this as sort of a balanced approach. But yeah, there's, I sort of started pulling the threads out of the evaluations right when they were done, and I've revisited them a couple times just to kind of keep on top of it. And though in the evaluation tool, we also asked if there was any specific information that staff would recommend that the incoming director of equity and anti-racism would think about as they build a curriculum, and if they would be interested in serving in any capacity on sort of a staff committee to work on that. We asked in a very non-binding way. It was not, it was sort of like,
Sign here.
would you like to be sort of invited to do this work if we put together a staff committee? And I think that we're at a place that we can really build from.
Thank you. What were you able to learn about, I'm curious, the reasons why people didn't come, so the 20 or so percent who chose not to or were not able to, what are you able to understand about that?
I think a lot of it was just they were off, they were not here. So I think that I did not hear any feedback from people who didn't come because they didn't want to. I didn't ask for that feedback, and there's no reason that somebody would have told me that. But what I did hear from some people was like, I've had this time off scheduled for a long time, I'm gonna be away, I can't, like, so I think it was an availability. We did it close to the holidays, and there were a few reasons for that, but we thought moving forward was more important than trying to find the perfect date. And we knew we would also have staff day as another shared learning opportunity. One thing I think I want to talk to the incoming equity and racism director about is does the 1 day a year staff learning day model work? Is that what is the best? Because I think it'd be interesting to try what if we did a half day, sort of 6 months after, where we could do, you know, a 4-hour training with staff. But because of the number of people we have here, it's fairly unrealistic to think that we'll have 100% participation in any event. But as we establish these relationships, I think that we can keep working on how can we offer things so that everybody who wants to come can participate. And then as we do that, I think there'll be more opportunity to dig into if people are opting out, what does that mean? And what do we need? What conversation does that bring about?
Thank you for the additional details, it's really helpful to understand the bigger picture.
Any other questions on any of the strategic priorities reports? If not, I will move on to library core use statistics. Do we have any questions or comments there? I'm just always in awe that our digital use is always going to go up every time. Like just when I think it can't go up anymore. And the online resource use, digital materials.
New user accounts.
Most of the questions I had were answered at the bottom. So that was nicely done. Yeah, I had to go back and go, I'll see down below.
And we're continuing to phase out the digital-only accounts, right?
Yes.
I don't think that this will affect us, but like the Renew the Avenue, does that affect our library, or is it all south of us?
So like Randolph.
Renew the Avenue, like, cause
Oh, Park
they're,
Avenue.
they're doing a bunch of like sewage street
Oh, I thought
work.
they just pushed that to February.
They just,
They
They
did,
did,
so we had,
Still happening.
Matt for facilities go to like the most recent kind of, it was sort of a kickoff meeting, but the date has changed. And so my understanding is it will not impact us in that it doesn't tear up Lake Street,
yeah,
but it is very close. So I think it will impact how people get here, and, but I don't think that we want to.
yeah, I guess you guys don't have like an entrance that way, it's just something I think, I know a lot of businesses are concerned, so.
Yeah.
I guess they did ours during COVID.
Yeah,
They closed.
okay,
They ripped up the plaza and they ripped up that front, so he felt that we were kind of in a better spot if they had done that in 2020, so.
This stage is lengthy.
yeah.
It's a long-term, project.
Well, I'm glad we won't be affected too much, sounds like a headache.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of one of those things that we won't really know what the effect is gonna be until it's happening. And then we will probably get community feedback about how it's affecting people getting to.
I'm a little worried about access to other parking facilities
Yeah,
that are
and like
along,
using ours and stuff.
yeah, and people coming here, or like the street parking that's over there, people, again, coming over to the parking spaces that are closer to us. So I think that was one of the first things I thought about, is if a lot of that parking over there is not even necessarily inaccessible, but I know as a parent, I look at parking spaces and I'm like, I don't feel comfortable doing all of this juggling with a small child in that particular parking space. I'm gonna go pick someplace else. Are those folks gonna start defaulting to coming to parking spaces that are closer to the library or that are more accessible because of the construction? So, but I agree, we won't know until we know, but.
Is it close enough that it's gonna impact staff in terms of noise and being here? Although,
I don't think so. So it would be on Oak Park Ave.
South Boulevard and on, I think, so it's mostly south.
Randolph, it starts at Randolph.
And then it goes all the way to Lake, right?
I think it was past Lake, doesn't it?
Randolph to Ontario.
Ontario
Randolph to
goes
south
all
to
the way,
Ontario.
yeah.
Skips Lake Street, because that's where they tore it
It's
up.
a good project that's just gonna cause a lot of.
So
Yeah.
there could be periods where there's either noise or vibration. I don't think it'll be for the duration of the project. But we don't. And like I said, Matt went to that kickoff meeting. We will continue to have staff at any informational sessions and make sure we're kind of on top of at least the progress. So
I'm
we
just
can
thinking that, I'm sure you all are too, staff that get migraines or various things like that, however, to navigate that.
Or just how they get here, because there's a lot of walkers, bikers.
And at certain points in the project, it could even impact people who take the train and walk from the train later. So I think we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll see what we can do to kind of make it easier for folks.
Are we okay with moving on to additions, separations, and staff changes? So we officially have our new Director of Communications. And she hit the ground running very fast. She's already coordinating with all of the other governing bodies for ICE and immigration responses to make sure that governing bodies have a coordinated communication response. So that was like, I think 3 minutes after she got the title. So she's already had quite a bit to do, but very, very happy to have her in that position.
And another change noted there is Antonio started, he was in a temporary position which we have changed to regular part-time position, no longer temporary. And one of the things that we are hoping to accomplish with that is having more public safety presence at the branches. So we've made a few changes.
That's great.
We have a follow-up meeting next week, I think, to check in about how that's going and how the model change is looking. So we're excited about that, and having somebody who is already in a public safety role that was able to successfully transition into a permanent role is always great.
Yeah, very good.
If we don't have any other questions there, I'll sort of take the piece on the statewide stats comparison. Ellsworth was kind enough to put this together, also with Alex. After we went to ILA, we saw some of those stats like in the back of the pack around number of libraries and percentage of residents who have a card. And I had asked Ellsworth, what does this look like in Oak Park? I do want to call out that the Illinois numbers are from 2024. Our numbers are from 2025. But there were some big differences there. Like we whipped out a calculator partway through our conversation, but like the number of programs we have as a library is, higher than quite a few other libraries. The number of residents we have here, the saturation of users of the library, nearly 50% of our residents, which is huge. And so it tells us that the things that we're doing, not just the materials and the programs, but Rob being here, the environment that we're providing, the third space that we're providing, it's actively reaching 50% of our neighbors. And this is just people who have cards. This is not counting other folks who come here, just for a program or just for, the Barbara Ballinger, something like that. I was really heartened by some of the numbers here. So I had asked Ellsworth what this looked like, and after seeing the numbers, asked him to put something together so that we could all sort of see some of those pieces and see not how we measure up, but how we work by comparison to some of the other Illinois libraries or the Illinois libraries as a whole.
I have a quick question. The 1,329 library events, I was wondering what counted as an event?
Programs. So Alex was going to be here tonight to kind of nail down the change. But do you remember what we took that from, Susan?
Which number are you referencing?
The
Number
events.
of events.
Oh, I think that's, programs. Whether that's a story time or, an adult, like a folk concert, trying to get.
So that would also include like book bike events or not so much?
I'm not sure exactly how we calculate those specific outreach events.
Okay.
Kind of similar to when we table something. I think there's a number of ways we do book bites. We either go to like a block party, so I'm not sure if you're counting everybody who interact or is that one visit. So I would have to talk to her more about, we have, similar to the data that you get in strategic priorities, I think they were pulling it from that, extracting it from that. So I would imagine so,
Book bike is something that's a little bit more unique, but when I think of the library event, I think of a story time or a library sponsored program.
Okay.
This is a fantastic one pager.
Yeah, it looks great.
And thank you to all of you that went to the legislature with that, it's great. The staff was there, it's great, you guys went.
I also just sort of selfishly want to call out the materials, what is it, 56 per card holder versus I think 23 per card holder statewide. So when people are, when we're seeing those digital numbers go up, when they're seeing the hold times, like, there's a reason why. Your neighbors are reading a lot, everybody here, like, we are using a lot of materials here, but I think that's also an important part of the conversation as we, as trustees, go out in the community and people are asking these questions, like, we don't just have a higher rate of people having a card, we have a higher rate of people using that card, and using that for lots of different kinds of materials, be they digital or physical materials, so that contributes to some of the other differences on this page, but when Ellsworth showed me that, I was like, yeah, that tracks.
Is there any interest in displaying this somewhere for a bit?
We could talk to Alex about it. I think it's I mean, it's interesting for sure. I think that, yeah, we could talk to Alex about what she might imagine. I also think this could have a place in like the annual impact report, which is sort of what ILA did. They put it on the back of their program guide. And we do, we demonstrate, we show our statistics in so many different ways that hearing a response to this compared to the core statistics that are in the packet every month makes me think maybe there's an opportunity for repackaging, because this has many of these same statistics and some others, but it doesn't generate the enthusiasm that we're seeing from this one. So what do we learn from that? And one thing we could do is just do an overlay for this regular dashboard that does a little bit more, camera looking. We can pull out some steps and show, so they're a little bit more conversation ready. So I think we can talk with Alex about where this could go, what we might use it for, and also think about how does this inform how we communicate our core steps every month.
I mean, I like the dashboard that we get because we look at it every month, but I think you're right. I think the numbers are a little bit more tangible to, the constituents. It's a little bit easier to understand than the other stats that we see in the board packet. So I wouldn't want to get rid of those. I like seeing those, but I think as part, like you said, communicating with the general public, I think this is a little bit more easily digestible.
I kind of think would almost like to see it in places outside the library in the village, if the possibility of something with these, by the numbers. Just thinking about the online conversations that you see where there's people who don't use the library and don't read and think, why am I paying for this thing that's outmoded? And so I just love the 56 per annum, and to give them an idea of how that compares with the state, or with other libraries, to give it the context that, we are an important resource, we are a used resource. So yes, it is an important place for tax dollars in Oak Park. Even if you yourself don't go, it's used.
I think this was done in response to Virginia's request to make a comparison to the ILA stats. I think another conversation that we could have internally is if that's what we're thinking about, is sort of the outward facing, are these the stats we would use? Is there a different set? And then how much comparison is needed to tell that story. If I looked at this, if a medical clinic had this up and they said, this is how many people we saw during the year, I might have a momentary thought of like, that's cool, like that's a lot of people, but my next thought would be, and what, like, what does that mean? But I also think that there's I like data, and I like data with a lot of integrity, so when I think about comparison, is it the libraries of the state that we compare to? Is it libraries from areas like ours around the country? Is it Illinois libraries with similar demographics? Like what is the most fair way to make that comparison in a way that we can synthesize for the general public that doesn't require 7 paragraphs of explanation? So I think this is a great project. I think, again, sort of seeing the response to this is really helpful, and Alex and her team are so well equipped to think about what kind of a promotional push could we do, sort of isolating pieces of these statistics and making them easy to understand, visually appealing. Where can we push those out? Whether that's just a social media campaign or print publicity or what it might look like.
Yeah, so I'm hearing all of that. I think that there are some reasons to be concerned about comparison, so we may decide that that might not be the right, what we're trying to do. But what I find so impactful about this is that all of it, but that, or parts of it that culminate in that last one, right? That we do all of this for $219 a person. Like for me, I saw that, I was like, wow, that's really impactful. It tells a very effective story about the value that the library adds in the community. And so for that reason, I think it's really powerful. It could be something that it also maybe falls in the purview of the civics librarian. And also, we don't necessarily have to go looking for an opportunity. We could also just know that this is here for the right, when the right opportunity comes along. Okay, that's an option. So.
I had a question about the per person, because I know we love that number, but so is that per household, per library user, or per individual in Oak Park?
Per resident in Oak Park, and that's
like
different from our
55.
per household number.
So that's just like our budget divided by 55,000 people, basically?
So it's different from the.
Oh.
She thought you knew the population by heart, she didn't realize you were looking at the top. She gets away like that.
That's the first thing, that's where my mind went to, is like the household number that we use for our budget.
Yeah.
Which one makes sense to use, the household number or the individual number?
I don't know that one is better than the other. I don't know. I always struggle with this because I think, to your point, like I don't like comparing because I want every community to have such a strong library system, and I think there are some people that like to misunderstand why libraries need to exist. So like we're never going to convince those people, and that's okay.
Right, but I think that's why.
Like, let's think about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think letting you guys think about it, because it's your work every day, is probably the best people. And Alex, and you think about it.
I think it's often powerful too to pair the statistic with sort of a humanizing story. So, okay, so this is how many people accessed our online databases, but wouldn't it be nice to also hear from somebody about why that mattered? So I think there's a number of kind of moving pieces here that we can pull from.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It'd be interesting to see more on this, the card holders at a different, I'm not saying anything particularly now, but I've just seen above that there's a 66% retention rate for new card holders, so that these 56 pieces, it would just be interesting to see like the median, like what is the median card holder doing here? Because it must be more concentrated, right? Because if we lose a third, if we're only keeping 66% of new card holders, I have no idea what it is for old card holders, but it's probably pretty concentrated, right?
Colin's just trying to call out people who are using all the.
No, I'm saying there's got to be a big chunk that are doing like 100 or something, right?
I mean,
see the median.
we've had people come and do public comment that like, yeah, they're doing an entire degree getting their books here, or you know, they wrote a book and all of the research they did, you know, so there are people who are definitely coming here getting 300
Yeah.
resources a year, and then there's, you know,
Well, there's those people like Virginia who saw the.
I've only checked out one book this year, clearly.
I mean, well, I think power users are fascinating, because we have power users who are heavy users in one way, so maybe they check out, you know, thousands of print books. But then we also have power users who have more of like a galaxy approach, where they're using lots of our resources very heavily. And we have some ways to connect those usage dots, but not all of them are going to be accurate. I think about like people who utilize our free printing.
Right.
That is not linked in the same way as lots of other data would be. But I like the idea of kind of mapping out, kind of blowing some of these up and looking at.
It's like understanding the personas, like there's gotta be a big chunk of people who check out nothing, right? And just seeing, what the SKU looks like.
Yeah, and I mean, within that, I would be interested to see, so if we have a print power user, is it 70% of their print checkout are pictures and 30% are cookbooks? Like what does that look like within each user?
Yeah.
And you know, data privacy is really important to us, so we share those things in different ways, but I also think that, you know, with permission, we can tell a more detailed story about use. So this is an exciting conversation. Like I said, Alex was going to be here, had a availability change, but I'm sure that she will listen back to this conversation and we can keep working on what this looks like.
All right, let's move on to financial reports. Colin Ellsworth, anything that we need to call out here on the financial reports?
Well, I'll let Billy go. I'll do the finance committee part, and he'll talk about the foundation and all that, but I'd like to leave this to Billy.
We're looking at November and December.
Yeah,
Just wanted to call that out
I
for
try to keep it short for you, and if there's questions, please stop me. But I think what's important to note about the November, you're looking at both the November financials and the December financials. In both of those statements of revenue and expenditure, for the revenue, there's something that's missing. If you haven't, the second installment taxes are missing in both of those. So that's missing from the revenue side. On the expenses side, in both the November report and the December report, we're running about 4% under with our expenses. What's that 4% translate into in December? About $424,000 surplus. So we're still processing some invoices that that are for 2025, but it's likely going to result in about over $400,000 surplus. And that's important because that's if you look at the capital expenses that we had. I don't have it right in front of me at this second, but page number is going to be important on this one. For December, so page in the packet, it's page 89. I'm telling you that you're going to have about a $400,000 surplus in your operating. And you see that we spent about $408,000 in capital expenses. So it's working out as it should, right? The surplus is paying for those capital expenses. And our unassigned fund balance remains untouched. So anyway, this is a great position to end the year in. And knowing it's easier to talk about it now, knowing that was it just last week?
Yeah.
Was it just last week? Just last week we started receiving some funds. Now we've received about $1 million of the 5.5 that were owed to the second disbursement. We received about 1 million. Cook County over the last couple of days has not released any additional funds to us, so we're going to continue to monitor this. We knew that they have a schedule that's going to go through February 5th, so we'll continue to monitor and keep everyone
Is the not payment not following the schedule, or was the not
We-
payment part
we
of the
did-
schedule?
The schedule that they gave us was they were planning to make distributions across all of their taxing bodies. We don't know
So
where
we
we
don't know
fell
where
in
we fell.
there,
Okay,
yeah.
understood.
I wish we did,
I know,
because it would help me not freak out as much.
I know.
But yeah, overall, it's really a good place to end the year, minus that, the tax bill hiccup. But, yeah, we'll
But everything
one
we,
time.
everything we could control is falling into
Yes,
place.
yeah.
Yes, it should.
And doing so well, and I commend the leadership team and the staff here, because we don't just get to the end of the year and go, oh, thought it worked out. Like, no, we've worked on
No,
this
you
to
did.
make sure we
Yes.
control our expenses, make sure they come in under budget.
Thank
Just
you.
a silly question, when is our 2026 first installment meant to come in?
I believe they pushed back the due date by 1 month because they were so late in issuing the second installment. So
Okay.
they pushed it off a month. I don't want to give you the wrong info, but I think it was due typically around March 1st, and I think it might be due like April 1st.
Okay,
But
so we're
we'll
looking at
see. We'll see.
April, May-ish for our first installment.
Yes, but what I've learned is that Cook County cannot issue like the next installments. They've figured out how to do the last installment. So like they're gonna have to figure this all out before they can even think about releasing the first installment next year.
So this could be, the first installment could be delayed because of these problems.
If they don't figure this out, yes.
Because it's usually not delayed because it's a set amount, but that's not what's gonna happen.
It's the
this year.
the bill will probably go out on time. It's the distribution
Okay,
piece.
so the bills will go out.
Yeah. Cook County will collect the
So
money.
Cook County will collect the money and make interest on it while the rest of us,
That's my prediction.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
thank you.
okay. So everyone gets to breathe for, a couple of months.
Till February 5th.
And then we'll resume our budget-based panic at the end of March. All right, I will, if there's no more discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve the November and December resolutions and disbursements.
Motion.
Second.
Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, Finance Committee.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I wanted to add to what Billy was saying for a moment there about the capital. You know, there was a comment made at the village board meeting about us having that in deficit, but like you pointed out, it's not a deficit, and you plan the operating fund to fit this part of the capital into it, and it did. It's 100%, and they've added that into, so I just thought that was interesting. So, yeah, I mean, some of this stuff is moot at this point, but during our finance committee meeting, we had a conversation about the loan IGA, the intergovernmental agreement loan that we were trying to get from, or did get from the village for $4.5 million. There was some discussion after the initial meeting, the finance committee meeting at the village board, that they, some trustees may have misunderstood and wanted to charge interest on the loan. So there was going to be another vote on that. We were preparing and did have an extra meeting to approve that loan IGA. We talked to our counterparts on the village board, and they agreed that they weren't going to revisit and charge interest on that. So we got approved for that loan IGA, and I assume we didn't really use it, I guess, or yeah, so well, that was still good, I think, in terms of relationship building in the future if that ever comes up again. So, and I appreciate everyone who made the effort of attending that meeting on Wednesday. What was it, 1 minute?
It was 4.
4 minutes, okay, yeah.
Well, but to be fair, at least 1.5 of those was taking rolls.
Yeah, I struggle.
I don't think we're out of the woods yet.
No,
And
yeah.
I think,
Shouldn't feel like, yeah,
I
whatever.
think moving forward with approving the IGA was absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, yeah.
we can activate, and There is some documentation that would need to be shared with the village before any kind of actual drawdown is done. And Linda and Billy are so on top of that. We could have that ready when needed, so.
Yeah, right now, February 15th was the date that we were gonna need to call on that loan, before we started receiving funds. Now that date, by receiving $1 million, or a little over $1 million, that date's now March 15th. So that date keeps moving out, the more funds we get, so.
It's good to know, so yeah, the still relevant, and then, let's see what else, so the bridge
Actually,
financing.
before you move on,
Yeah.
can I ask a quick question? Does that agreement have an expiration date?
Yes, it does, I forget what is the date.
I know the repayment was supposed to be June.
June of 2026, yeah, this is all about the second installment. We see a delay in the first installment, and I don't think that we're gonna be in a situation where we need cash, but if we do, might have to redo the IGA, if it gets, beyond April, May, time slot, we might start looking at that. But we'll stay on top of that, we'll monitor the terms.
I think, but I also, part of the, confusion or drama was this, incorrect narrative that was sort of put forth that we had done something irresponsible financially, and I think it's very important moving forward that we continue to, be, very communicative of, how we are doing things so that those kinds of things do not impede.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some misunderstandings, but I think it was addressed, so.
And I think we could invite the new finance director to a finance meeting or find a different way to have a conversation where there can just be authentic question and answer about any of our practices and any of their practices.
Yeah, I like that. Let's see what else. You mentioned we were moving to a net 30 payment policy. I don't know, did we have to do that? I know at the time we mentioned it.
We're still kind of in that managing our cash.
Okay. So we're doing the net 30. So that's going to be a temporary policy, it sounds, until we're out.
It's our policy all the time.
It's
It's just we have the cash and we pay the air bills later, but we're delaying some of those. But not delaying it it's appropriately done. It's
Right.
within the net 30
years. Yes.
It's within our policy.
You're not overachieving.
Correct.
You're just a cheat.
We're cheap, yes. We visited the fund balance policy as well, so there's a discussion if we should move beyond 42%, and this discussion was again spurred by, the dialogue we heard at the village board meeting. We discussed changing this into time-based, so changing it for 6 months operating expenses. So Billy's gonna look at a line-by-line edit of this with legal and maybe with a financial consultant and review this and bring something back to the board in terms to the governance committee, I guess, and sometime by March, it sounded like, right, or February, March or something, or maybe it was.
Ellsworth, you want to give an update or?
I'm sorry, can you repeat this?
The funding balance policy, or you?
Oh, right, so, Billy has been working with,
Mariston advisors.
so, to talk about kind of what the path forward for this would be. And it sounds like, someone from that advisory group is available to join us, for the governance committee meeting on Monday.
Fantastic.
To talk, and this was like late
Just
breaking news, and we haven't been holding this. And to talk about both his initial read-through of the policy and kind of what the visioning for what the change could look like. And it sounds like those conversations have been going really well. And I think we're all excited to hear more from him about what this could look like. And having that sort of outside expert opinion, I think will be helpful in helping us keep the scope appropriate and think about what's gonna be the most practical policy change.
Yeah, I'm sad I can't make that, but yeah, Megan, I'll text.
We'll tell you what.
Yeah, that doesn't go out.
So I think in this situation, having the overlap,
Policy.
Yeah, 'cause
I would-
yeah,
I would
finance
make
and
sense.
and if there's a possibility here that timing will just really work well to go through governance, finance, regular board.
That's great.
I was anticipating a lengthier process. So if it works this way, I think that'd be great for everybody.
Yeah.
That's great. Right away.
And then finally, we had a discussion on the library foundation, and we had most of the board at the finance committee, because everyone was roaring to go on this conversation. So let's see, there was limited documentation from prior efforts. The committee agreed that foundation would need to be rebuilt from scratch if we were doing it. We wouldn't be based off anything in the past, mainly. Previous attempts didn't go very far, is what our beliefs were on that. Some concerns were raised in terms of outreach method of getting board members. There were questions centered around the objectives and the governance of this foundation. Suzanne noted her experiences working with the foundation at the Forest Preserve, and noted challenges of fundraising for a taxing body to fundraise. And then, Ellsworth gave us some information as well as how it worked in Iowa City and some other libraries, and had some opinions on how we would like to see staff involved with the foundation if we were to do it. And we also mentioned Northbrook and Downers Grove were cited as comparable libraries with foundations. And I can't remember, to be honest, I don't have our next steps on this, but I'll have to look at them again. I think our next steps were to look more at Northbrook and Downers Grove and understand more.
I think it was all research.
And I also learned River Forest also has a foundation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
So even closer
Oh,
neighbor.
really? Yeah.
Yeah.
that's right.
Do we know anyone that,
I know someone on the board.
yeah, we should look into that.
They once told me they have a lot of money and don't know what to do with it.
Oh, well, there we go.
We can-
Well, that's maybe because they have a foundation, so we get a
Sorry,
foundation.
I know someone on the board of their foundation.
Oh, their library
They
foundation?
don't know what to do with their money?
I don't know, actually, is she on the board of, I think she's on the foundation's board, yeah.
Well, that might
Well,
be
Does she
more.
personally have so much money she doesn't know what to do with?
No,
Like,
she
does she
doesn't.
want to give it to?
It was one of those conversations where I was just like,
Rolling your
whoa,
eyes.
that's great.
Well, but that might be somebody.
Because I remember I was like, what if you talked to the staff about how they would receive them? They were like, oh, that's a great idea. So it was early, I don't know. Very different, yeah. No, thanks.
Yeah, it'd be great to maybe make a connection there, so,
Because right now, research, I think, was our next step.
yeah.
So you know someone on River Forest?
I think I do. At least she used to be, if she's not anymore. But yeah, I could look into
She's
it.
still somebody who could either help us or tell us somebody else
Yeah.
she could introduce us, make
Yeah.
introductions, yes.
That's great.
Thank you, Christina.
Well, I'll try. I'll see what I can do.
All right, governance committee.
Yeah, so we met on December 1st, which seems like a lifetime ago, right? We talked about the policy review schedule that Ellsworth put forth. But we're gonna be open to pivot and putting new policies in as they come through. We talked about the strategic planning next steps, which we now have that date set on February 26th that we're gonna do our governance meeting. Our team is gonna sort of take over being the first steps towards it. But of course, everyone's welcome to the meetings, join us on the 26th. We talked about the evaluation, which is now, we have a date set for that as well. And we talked about the bylaws, which is something we do have to address, but we sort of are kicking that a little bit further. Some of the policies, two things, some of the policies that we're doing will overlap with the bylaws so that we can do it in one swoop. And we also talked about having the bylaws be part of the strategic plan so that that can be sort of integrated into that, so. Our next meeting's Monday.
Any questions to the governance committee? All right, advocacy committee.
We haven't had another meeting since our meetings are quarterly or as needed, so there hasn't been another meeting since the last report that I gave. But I will say that on our last agenda that we didn't get to was trustee training, which has, I think, shifted to the governance committee's agenda, which I think also makes a lot of sense, so I support that. And the other kind of ongoing agenda item that the advocacy committee has been addressing or talking about has been exploring the othering without belonging paradigm. So I've shared some learning materials that all of us, and with the time that we have when we have it, we can explore. And I see those books there, and I don't know if you want to talk about that now, but
Yeah, that'd be great.
okay, great.
So, Annie set out a list of resources to start with, and we kind of talked about what's the best mechanism to start sharing these. So, the book is coming around, and we're working on the rest of the resources to create sort of a learning guide to just make sure they're kind of easily accessible for everybody who might want to look at those. I don't have a distinct plan for how we will reconvene to talk about these. The committee meetings might be an appropriate place to do that. But we felt like getting the book in hands was a good step. And we also ordered copies for everyone on the leadership team, so that we can join this learning journey.
Sorry. Yeah, so I really, really appreciate you taking the step of buying and distributing the books. The next advocacy committee meeting will be in March, and we'll want to be in conversation around the strategic planning session. So perhaps we can touch base about that and sort of try to fold this in or dovetail it or make it align with the conversations that we're having in the strategic planning. So stay tuned for more in March.
And there is a conference, right, that is maybe in the fall?
Actually, I think it's in the spring in Louisville. No, I'm wrong. October 9 through 10. I don't know what I was thinking about in Louisville.
No, I think it changed, because I feel like when I looked, it was also in the spring.
That makes sense. Well, that's good, because my spring is getting very booked, and that gives us a lot longer. I will do some research on that, make sure that everybody gets informed, and we could have a discussion about that in our next meeting. So that's great that we have a little bit more time.
What's the conference?
And it's a conference called Belonging Without Othering that's put on by the Othering and Belonging. They're really gonna, this tongue is the Othering and Belonging Institute at UC Berkeley that does the intellectual work of building out the belonging without othering framework, as well as a really robust set of curricula that go along with, that are about belonging without othering, about that paradigm, but also topics that are adjacent to it. And they do a conference every year. Yeah, I will send this out right now to the board, but we'll also get more information about it and add it to our agenda.
Do you know why one of the authors lowercase their name? There's a reason?
There's a,
Oh, it's in the book.
no, well,
Okay.
no.
Read the book.
I was like, it's gonna be in the book, it's gotta be
It might
explained.
be. I mean, I think there's a few authors and thinkers that like to do that. They all have their own reasons. I can't remember what his reason is. I know like Adrienne Marie Brown says she like belongs to the universe, so she just doesn't want to have her name like the power kind of authoritative. But
Yeah.
people choose that for different reasons.
Interesting. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, any other questions for our committees? When you have a date for March, can we get that so we can put it on the calendar and we can all know if we can attend?
We were going to do it in February, but you see this list of all these events already on February.
There's a couple events
happening, so it seems much more reasonable for everybody to.
And I think after doing the strategic planning, I think it makes more sense to do it after that. All right, additional reports. iGov.
Okay, I'll be fast. We are hopefully gonna get the webpage up soon. There's still some documents that internally we have to like get everyone on board with, and that's not easy as a group. So there's one document I'm really excited about. It's been like 3 years in the making, and it's gonna be to help folks that are thinking about running for office So when the webpage is live, we'll have that on there too, which will be very good for the 2027 election. But that's what I was saying, we don't really have much, we're not really doing much around this election. But there's been a lot of movement. I think even just like with the budget stuff, like it's been so good to have relationships to be able to correct narratives in certain ways and things, so that came up. So I mean, we always do around the table and share kind of what's going on, what's coming up. There was one other thing I wanted to share with you all. Oh, that IGov has been around for like 15 years, I think, and honestly, like there's not a great archive of what has happened and what, how they've worked together, and so we're trying to do a lot of the like historic organization. And we found this really cool document that we want to update, and so it's like this really big spreadsheet that has all of the different governing bodies as columns, and then kind of rows of different coordination between them. And so we were thinking like just knowing how we all work together is really important, and most of us don't know that. So Christina Waters and I are gonna work on that, and I might pull you into Annie. But yeah, we're doing a lot.
All you had to say was spreadsheet.
Can I ask a question?
Sounds easy.
Can I ask a question? What was the conversation around the budget? Like what sort of things? Because I mean,
Yeah.
I think
It
of
wasn't
as sort
a
of being.
conversation, I'll say.
It
It
wasn't?
was because the only person from the village there like supports us. However, I took the opportunity to just share. So I guess like there wasn't a discussion, it was just I was able to share, like just FYI, this is what happened and this is how.
Yeah, no, I'm talking more about for future too, because I sort of think of IGov as the place where these conversations would start.
Sometimes they
So
do.
sometimes they do, but that isn't really what it's.
It's kind of because like it can come down to certain trustees too, right? So it's like not, the whole board isn't unified necessarily.
No, I'm not saying and you're saying agree with this, that's actually not what I'm asking, I'm just asking about having the start of the conversation, it's sort of like this is happening, we're gonna have these problems,
Yes.
we're coming before you,
Yeah.
like,
We do
okay,
that.
those do happen, those conversations do
We try
happen.
to, yeah.
Okay.
I think,
I mean, it's not a decision-making space.
No, it's a
But
conversation-making space, and I sort of felt like when this went down, there was no conversations happening, so I just was wondering.
So I was gonna say that I think that this is a place where we can do a lot of putting out the correct information and correct narratives and getting ahead of them.
Mhm.
So I think that is sort of what you're saying.
yes, and I think there's also
In
like
part.
real, what's the word, like sometimes not everybody wants to understand. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, I think there have been conversations, and I'm still surprised sometimes by the pushback from other boards, people. Yeah, I mean, I have thought that we're on the same page about something, and then we go our separate ways and we get our own workloads, and I think then, you know, our lenses change. You go back to your table and think about it differently, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the goal, is like, we shouldn't be surprised. I don't like surprises in this way, and so, yeah, I think that's always the goal.
Yeah, I mean, is that part of the mission? I mean, because I'm asking from somewhat a place of ignorance, is that part of the mission?
Yeah.
Is for it to be, because that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. And it's not, like I said, to me, it's not about necessarily agreeing or convincing people or having the same views, but it's just having a conversation so that as things move down, everybody has the same information, no matter what your opinion on the subject is. And so I just.
That's the goal.
That's the goal? Okay, good. Well, then I think that.
And I think I get significantly closer to that goal now than it was.
We're
5 years
trying.
ago.
I mean, it really is like, it's such a fluid group. We don't always have the same folks at each meeting. People take time off. It's just like any collaborative space, like it's so hard.
Yes, but
It's so
Is
hard.
it the same representative though from each
There's
body?
now
It should be
reasonable
the same
leadership,
too,
just
but
saying.
thank you. It should be the same, like two rotating.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little different, but.
Because when it was first devised, is that what it was sort of devised as an idea? Okay.
Yeah, although that's also interesting. Like, I mean, the more we dig around history, the more question marks come up, and the more this space has really never been that, like operationalized or that like normalized. It's all, and I think that like is a good thing. And I like organization, I like having things to come back to, and it's hard to, yeah, there's a lot of challenges.
Because there was a conversation earlier this year, what's the difference between IGov and COG, except for the
Came
COG
up and
will
I
show up.
got this time too.
Well, that's also a question. I mean, I'm just, and this is.
I mean, from what I can tell, the difference is, I go to COG. Because, I mean, that sounds ridiculous, but I think
And
COG
it
is.
came up in IGov this past month of just like, no, we don't want to be a part of COG because COG is this totally different thing. And I was like, can you explain how it's different? And then like, not really. And so like, I know how it's different, that we have EDs at those.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, this last time we had, like, we're gonna have the collaboration for early childhood present next month. Last month we had Beyond Hunger, and so like, there are really good presentations that we have that then sometimes come to COG too, so it's like, why wouldn't we just?
Likewise, yeah.
Interesting.
I'd like to coordinate better. We're, I think, doing a lot of like the early work to make that happen better, but.
I would also like to see more overlap, because I think really the only difference is that COG is the chairs and the directors, and IGov isn't necessarily chairs, and
Yeah.
the staff isn't there. But it really feels like the mission or the goal of the conversation is very similar.
Well, and then Claire Waters gets to be in both, so then she gets to tell me how they're a little different. But it's messy, and all collaboration work is messy, so I think like that's, like for me, my goal is that it is a place where we build relationships, communicate our issues, collaborate, coordinate, align, but it is tough, it's challenging work. And it's challenging because I think, to me, collaboration is a value. But you opt into this, and I don't know that collaboration is everyone's value, and that's okay, but it is kind of a space that requires it, so it's tough.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
COG, I was not at the last COG. I think the last time we were mostly discussing the ICE response, which pivoted over to Kelly at the Village, and Alex is now taking that on. That was the majority of the conversation.
I was at the last COG meeting, and that is also how I remember. Kelly Keys did a presentation about this idea of bringing together comms folks and talking about having a more coordinated effort in communicating right now about ICE, response to ICE in the community, but I'm optimistic that it will then grow into sort of whatever else is needing immediate attention. And she did a presentation on that. We had a little bit of a conversation about past collaboration between our bodies, and then from that, there has already been one meeting in the group. Alex Skinner representing the library, and Alex came back and said, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. It felt mostly positive, and Alex being doing her role in communications, I think this is a really great opportunity to connect with counterparts, and I always think when there are people who are new in roles, you have a chance to sort of divorce from any past challenges, because you can sort of say, I'm new in this room, and like maybe I can lend some clarity. So I think it's going to be exciting to see what she brings to the group and what they come up with.
To call out, Kelly is the Director of Equity and Inclusion there at the Village. So while we were asked for our comms person and all of the governing bodies were asked for their communications person, the effort is being led by the Village DEI process. So I think that's important, and I also think that's why hopefully eventually this will expand to be a more broad, coherent communication process around all DEI inclusion efforts among the different governing bodies.
Can you say that again?
So that once it's no longer needing to focus just on immigration enforcement response, that there will be a mechanism for a coordinated communication of DEI welcoming messaging from all of the governing bodies.
Through COG or through, like there's having separate meetings?
No, this is
Through
different. This is the third thing.
It doesn't have an acronym yet, I don't think.
We should work on that. No, this is different. So this is no boards, all staff. Kelly is the director of DEI at the village.
Yeah.
The other members are the communications directors of the various governing bodies.
This is not new though, that's been going on.
It is.
This is new.
Oh, it is new.
But
Oh,
it
is new. Okay.
maybe existed in a different way at some point, not under the DEI offer. Like, I think there's been attempts at collaboration,
Yeah.
but that may have been around a very specific thing or not, but this is a new iteration.
Okay, got it.
And yeah, like, I think it's an important distinction. It's, as far as I know, it's all staff, no electives. And I think ICE is a fascinating first project because there are just some legal differences
Yeah, it's
in-
been illuminating.
in who these taxing bodies are and what our services are and what our models are. So to come into this as a first project could be really powerful, even just in terms of understanding each other. And what in the Parks Department, what is public space, in the library, what is public space, and all these different pieces. And it's a complicated puzzle, but I'm glad that we're talking about it.
It feels like the definition of eating the frog. Like, this is the hardest way to tackle something, like any topic after this should be.
I mean, have they made any headway? Because like, it's kind of urgent.
They've only had one
They
meeting.
met once.
Like,
and-
literally,
But they, you know, I mean, like, but it's like.
I mean, I think that, so it sounded like, and I don't want to speak for Alex, but I remember her saying that there's going to be, information sharing happening as a next step. So what is our communication with the public? What is our internal communication? And then I think from there, they'll start to grow something different. But again, our signage is going to be different than the township signage because we're legally required to allow
Yeah.
law enforcement and immigration enforcement at this point in certain parts of our building. They may not. So I think that there's an opportunity for some core messaging or some tone unification, but the granular pieces will not be the same.
Right.
And I think that electeds had this experience trying to work on the sort of declarations, and the one piece that we kept coming back to was, we can say you can't stage in the parking lot. I don't really think that would have been anybody's number one priority in communication around this. But it was something that we could hold on to and say with authority, this is disallowed. So I wouldn't be surprised if this group has some similar experiences in terms of, is the priority finding a unified message? Is the priority just knowing what every taxing body is doing? Where's the sweet spot in that?
Well, where do the workshops come together, like here in Scottsdale Park?
Planet Green, do we have an
I
update?
do. Matt went to Planet Green and shared notes. He said Planet Green met on December 18th, 2025, had a strategy session for the 2026 calendar year. Group discussion was had about meeting dates and times, and for now, the current Thursday schedule will hold. Discussion was had about getting a few in-person meetings on the calendar, but that discussion was paused due to scheduling and availability logistics. The Village of Oak Park gave an update on their green infrastructure plan, as well as a forecast for the plan in 2026, and an update was provided about the ongoing work to reduce food waste across area schools. Current obstacles include helping schools understand the why and finding ways to create school-wide opportunities for food waste education.
Friends.
We talked a lot about merch, or we talked about, like hats and shirts, and they talked about some shirt designs.
I'm sorry,
We talked a lot about merchandise to be able to sell, I can't remember if it was, Susie, was that for the book fair, or I think they were talking about hats and shirts.
for the book sale.
Well, they do a shirt every year that they wear for the book fair, and then they had general, they wanted to have just general friends merchandise that you could buy that didn't have necessarily the year on it.
Oh,
So they're kind of doing two different avenues of different products.
okay.
Look nice. Purple.
But very cool.
So, and then, some of the board members' terms were up, so they just went through who was interested in staying on, and that's about it.
I would say the most important thing for me is, since I've been here, I really worked to align the Friends funding schedule to align with our fiscal year. It took a year or so of transition, but they did approve our funding request, and they gave us a check for $25,000, which is a little bit more than we anticipated, and we already have that money, so that's always a good thing now that we have that funds.
The Friends were paying us when Cook County wasn't.
I know. Everybody needs to go on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's what makes them our friends.
They used to want to wait until after the book fair to fund us, because they kind of wanted to see how they would do. And they had a very successful year, but I kind of got them on board in the last year or so of funding us at the beginning of our fiscal year, so that we would be able to spend it kind of in line as opposed to having it run differently. So.
Great.
Out with purpose. Do we have any updates yet?
Nope.
Okay. Collaboration for early childhood.
No updates.
Then we'll move on to unfinished business. This is just a discussion item, but Ellsworth, thank you very much. Earlier this year, we talked about whether or not our parking was resulting in a regressive tax to folks who were staying in the parking lot past that sort of $1 window. So earlier this year, it looked like 95% of people were not passing that $1 mark. And we had asked Ellsworth, hey, can we see what all of 2025 looks like at the end of the year? So now that it is January of 2026, Ellsworth has provided that for us. It still looks like, about 4% of folks are $5 or over, with only 0.25% of people being over that $20 mark. I know this wasn't part of the conversation when we had it, was it in August or September? But now that we have just talked about the Oak Park Avenue work that's going to be done, if this is something that we decide to adjust, I think that's something that we have to take into consideration, is seeing whether or not our parking is going to be more accessible at a lower price during that construction time. But personally, I don't really see it enough to change it.
Yeah, the numbers here, so it's like 96% are paying $1 or less. And one of the conversation pieces were people going, just over, and only 8.52 are paying $1. So the majority of people clearly are paying nothing, that's 87%. Together, 96% are only paying $1, and then 1 and 0.25%. I think that I don't think there's, in my opinion,
It just tells me I think we're pricing things correctly.
Yeah, I think we are good. This is another thing, to kick to Alex and Collins, but just wondering if some signage could be added to like the stairway or the elevators, like indicating kind of the pricing, just so that people aren't caught off guard by such a big jump. Like if somebody comes here to work on a big project all day, and this just, again,
Like having it outside of the garage area?
It's up there though.
Yeah, there's a big sign by like when you walk in.
When you're driving in, right, you mean?
No, like when you're walking in and the pay box is here on the wall, there's a big sign with the number of hours.
Okay.
And I don't think it makes sense to have it away from the garage, because then I don't want people to misinterpret it as being
paid for the
library. Yeah, that it's a fee for something else.
If you're at the library for more than 3 hours, I guess you're supposed to pay $1.
No, I was,
Not really.
again, it's just based
Yeah, I
on
think it's good.
having a patron come up to me and like.
I'd be
she would
surprised.
speak as, of how much it was, and she just didn't know.
Okay.
So that, if it's down there, that's great.
Okay. Do we have any other conversation or discussion on
What
this?
do we do with this? Like, do we?
We don't have to do anything with it. This was just a
This was a-
discussion piece.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you for gathering the information.
Yes.
It is really good to know.
It is good to know.
It is, it's comforting to know that those mid-year numbers didn't really change by the end of the year.
We had a question and it got answered.
It did.
Yes.
Fantastic.
I was confident the numbers were gonna be similar, I was not confident that they would be this similar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a compelling.
Almost exactly.
I was gonna say, I had to stare at it for a minute. I'm like, did it change at all? Did he just copy the
1%.
same chart?
I did copy some of them anyway, because it was the same
I know.
story. But the number.
We're glad to know that you're using your time.
All right, then we will move on to new business, the communications policy review.
So I had, when Alex started her job, I mentioned to her that this was a policy that was on the schedule to review, but absolutely opened the door to if you need a couple months with your team to think about it, that's fine. I think she came back the next day and said, we met about it, we talked about it, we don't see a need for this policy. We ran it by Hansel Glink to make sure we weren't required to have this, and they said they did not see any reason we needed to keep it either. So the recommendation is to strike the policy. That doesn't mean that what's said in it isn't important, it just means we don't see the need for it as a standalone policy. We did some benchmarking with other libraries, and while lots of libraries have something called a communications policy, we did not see a document like this anywhere else. I don't know the origin story of this document, but I am curious about what happened to have,
Required it.
in 2005, did something happen that, what's the origin story? But whatever the origin story is, we're recommending removal.
Do we know?
Any discussion? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the amendments, the elimination of the communications policy review.
Second.
It is moved and seconded, seeing no other discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion passed, and we will go ahead and eliminate the 2005 communications policy review. Moving on to library board member goals sheet policy review.
Something we've never seen
Something that happened
or
in
applied to
2004 too.
So I actually have seen it before, and I remember looking at some of these things being like, I don't think that's a thing, like attending at least one program at each branch. I was like, there's so many programs that aren't even at a branch. Where do those fall in here? Like, it just felt a little bit antiquated.
Yeah.
Yeah, no notes.
And just speaking about both the board member goal sheet and the board member job description, there is some interesting and relevant content in both of these documents. I don't believe that they stand alone as policies. And when the governance committee talked about it, and when I talked to Hansel Glink about it, to bring it up to Glink, everybody's, like, the consensus was, if there are things in these documents that you feel strongly about, the bylaws is really the home for those. So I realize it's a little bit of a leap of faith to strike these before we review the bylaws, but because these do not seem to have been active documents, it doesn't feel like a risk to me. So we're recommending, I know we have to vote individually, but for both of these, we're recommending elimination of these as standalone documents. There's already significant overlap between these two documents and the bylaws. So I think it will just be sort of incorporating any like left behind pieces that were only here. And I also think as we talk about orientation material for future trustees, we may want to bring some of these things back, but probably not in the same way. So, and again, these were, I wasn't able to find the same kind of document in other libraries. Yeah, was anybody on the board in November 2004? What was happening? But I think I would feel differently if this was something that was visited every year and was actively done, but knowing that it hasn't been, we're recommending elimination.
Any discussion? All right, so as Ellsworth says, we do have to vote on these separately. So I will entertain a motion for the amendment and elimination of the library board member goal sheet review, or goal sheet, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the amendment and elimination is passed, and then I will now entertain a motion for the elimination of the library board member job description.
So moved.
Second, nope.
You guys want them, Russell, for it? No. Right. Moved by Christina and seconded by Suzanne. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that motion also.
I did run by the governance committee, does it feel reckless to suggest 3 policy eliminations in one meeting? And the response was a very practical, no, it seems efficient, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I
because
can't remember who sounded
I-
good.
The goal of the review is not to eliminate, but it is to make sure.
Clean
we're
up.
relevant.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we'll see a lot of meetings where all policies on the table are eliminated, but this one happened to be.
No, I think this is, I mean, one of the things we said at the beginning was, oh my God, we have so many policies, oh my God, we have so many to review. Now we have 3 fewer. I think our future counterparts will thank us. And I have all the faith in the world in our governance committee that the bylaws will have any of the pieces that were in here as a part of them once we get
Yeah,
to them.
and some of them were, I mean, like as was said, we did look at some of them, some of the lists, and they were, the big things, the big ideas are listed in the bylaws, yeah.
And we can revisit.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna
Exactly.
end up doing
And I
this.
think this is a great meeting to have 3 very simple.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Because we had so much
Because it was a double meeting.
double meeting and we had great
It's great speakers, yeah.
All right, having concluded all items on the agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much, friends.
Thank you very much.
Validated.